Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 867 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again. And of course, we're hearing of massive explosions out of Russia, and also NATO bases on high alert due to Russian saboteurs. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and we have absolutely major news, as we've been able to hear that the Ukrainian retaliatory strike has been conducted after a massive Russian drone and missile attack ended up attacking and hitting several incredibly severe targets, including a children's hospital inside of Kyiv. We were able to see that Ukrainian drones have been able to wreak havoc and destruction over a large area of the southern Russian Federation, and at this very moment, while we are live on air raid sirens are sounding over the cities of Belgrade and Rostov-on-Don as the Russians desperately try to defend their major cities near to the border region from incoming Ukrainian drone attacks. We may be getting information as we are live right now about the results and damage of those attacks and possible explosions, but nevertheless, we are still getting that story of it as it is coming out live right now. At the exact same time that this news was unfolding inside the Russian Federation, we were also able to get news that inside of Europe, U.S. bases have been put on high alert due to possible threats from Russian terrorist groups operating inside of the area of the European Union. Not only that, we were also able to hear that President Zelenskyy has arrived in the United States and is currently in Washington, D.C., awaiting the upcoming NATO summit, and we've also been able to get breaking news that the United States Department of Justice has been able to seize and destroy 1,000 Russian bot accounts that were posing as American citizens and spreading misinformation on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter. We were also able to get some major news from the area of the Middle East, where we were also able to hear that an Israeli airstrike has been able to destroy a large cache, or a large stash, either way you want to put it, of weapons that were being provided by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to Hezbollah. The Israeli Air Force was able to destroy this before the shipment was able to make it out of port, and this has been considered a massive success by the Israeli Air Force, and there has been a supposed claim that an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps advisor died in the explosion. We were also able to get news all the way on the other side of the world that tensions are still remaining high on the Korean Peninsula, as North Korea has issued a formal denunciation of South Korean live fire drills near to the area of the DMZ, and has also shown that they may be possibly taking action in the near future. There is a large amount of news that we have to cover over just the past 48 hours, and it is one of the most sad and also one of the most triumphant moments in recent Ukrainian war history due to the reason why Ukraine is currently conducting their drone attack. We will go over all of the drone attacks and the ongoing drone attack that is going on at this very moment while we're live on air, and then we'll backtrack and talk about what happened about 24 hours ago that led to this massive Ukrainian drone strike inside of the Russian Federation. Moving on into the major breaking news that we were able to get, we were able to see the Ukrainian drones earlier on in the day, around 18 hours ago, started to fly into the Russian Federation, into areas around the city of Volgograd, one of the largest and most important economical cities inside the Russian Federation, as they started to attack a large number of Russian military targets within the region. We were able to see one of these Ukrainian drones flying in the area quite recently in this clip right here. This is apparently a Ukrainian Bober drone, which many of y'all may know the video of that Polish guy looking at the groundhog or whatever it was, and he said, Bober kurva! But nevertheless, we can see a drone named after the Bober flying through the Russian Federation. This was somewhere near to the area of Volgograd, and we were able to see the drone right there, although the camera isn't really zooming in on it all too well. But there it goes, slowly making its way through the Russian Federation. And East Malibu, you pointed out, I said economical, that is not a word. Thank you for pointing that out. But we can see the Bulgar drone right here, actually flying over the Don River, from what we can tell.
Man, that little thing's determined.
That thing just keeps pressing onwards.
Да вот он, блядь.
А я его не вижу нихуя. Нихуя, вот он.
And that's seen in that clip.
Where's the air defense?
What the air defense, dude? Also, Matthew, did you notice? I don't know about you, but the paint job on this vessel, it led me to believe, look at this, it led me to believe that this may have been a small Russian patrol vessel moving down the Don River. Watch the video and tell me, don't you get the same kind of like quick glimpse that it does look like a small patrol boat? Watch.
Ну его нахуй.
Like, the paint job is
Yeah.
that Russian Navy gray. This thing looks like a small patrol boat of a sort.
It looks like it is to me too. It doesn't look like a normal civilian vessel, so I would say so.
It does to me, but nevertheless, one of those drones, and many of them like that design, continue to fly over the area. Also, really quickly, I'll move this right here, because from what we understand, that vessel was close to Kalach-na-Donu in the video, and that it was actually in the Don River Reservoir, which is just north of Volgodonsk. But nevertheless, in the city of Kalach-na-Donu, and really quickly, let me go get up my Ukraine Google Maps so that way I can show you all a little bit greater detail of this area. And so let me go get this. 1 second, everyone. I want to make sure that we can show you all Kalach-na-Donu in a little bit of greater detail. So, 1 second, let me get rid of that. There we go. So, moving on into the area of Kalach-na-Donu where the strike occurred, we understand that there is a fairly large oil facility somewhere around the outskirts of the city. I was not able to find this really quickly before the stream, so sadly I haven't been able to geolocate the exact position of this oil facility, but we've been told that it was some sort of an oil facility that was stricken by the Ukrainian drones that moved into this area not that much longer after that one clip that we just saw right on the Don River. I believe if it is anywhere, it is probably somewhere on the very outskirts, although sadly I'm still looking incredibly hard, very briefly trying to find it, and I'm not really finding that good of a sign of this facility yet. But we can see some kind of a shipyard right here that is apparently building new vessels, because we can also see a slipway right here where these ships would be commissioned. So it seems as though not only is Kalach-na-Donu an oil town, it is also a shipbuilding town as well. But nevertheless, moving on from that, we were then able to see the oil depot within the area got hit pretty hard and ended up going up into a fiery inferno. We have very rarely seen a massive explosion of this type in this area of the Russian Federation, this close to the city of Volgograd. But here is the first clip that we have, just showing the aftermath of the drone strikes and the massive inferno that had been created.
Man, just like the Chernobyl episode showed it, a huge piece of fire right there. That smoke is thick.
Man, that thing be thick. I think if you breathe that in, you would literally just fill your lungs with solid material. Like, it's no like smoke where you can kind of breathe in a little bit and maybe cough. That would be like, your lungs would literally be filled in solid from this stuff. But here's another clip showing the fire from a distance, and I believe this one also showed a second Ukrainian drone hitting the oil facility. And we can see it right there diving in and hitting. Nice.
And once again, no air defense whatsoever, just completely unarmed. And you don't even hear like small arms fire anymore. Like, you know, they used to have the oil workers out there shooting at them. Like, you don't even hear that.
I think the oil workers gave up, or they ran out of AKs, one or the other, because you don't really hear a lot of anti-air defense at all anymore. Even near the major cities, it seems as though anti-air defense is very sparse. But yet the fire continues, and we can see the already beginnings of the massive fireball we just saw a moment ago. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we can then see the massive fireball again. This is a slightly longer video of the exact same type we saw earlier, but still showing the absolute scale of the fireball.
Я сейчас утром был, с мужиками вот тут вот. Первый взрыв, блядь, у меня аж окна все поэтались, блядь. В Черкасу, блядь. Потом еще один взрыв.
That smoke is toxic. I mean, it's no doubt about it. It's always going to be toxic, but that smoke right there, Matthew, it looks like if you breathe that in, you probably have shortened your life down to a mere few months, most likely.
Man, one breath of that is the equivalent of a year's worth of Lucky Strikes. Like, it's done for your lungs.
Man, I'm telling you, like, that is some of the worst smoke I've ever seen. Here's another picture of it, just showing the volume of smoke and the scale of the fire that happened at this oil facility. And then finally, in this last bit, we also got to see, and we were able to geolocate this in the Shore War video today. I said we weren't really sure where this was. This is actually just outside of Rostov-on-Don, and it's a major electrical substation that was hit by Ukraine overnight. But we can see the fire of that right here. But we're going to save that for a little bit later. So we're going to move on from that clip and on into a few more that we have that we were also able to locate within the city of Kalach-na-Donu, where we were also able to see another Ukrainian drone coming in and hitting the oil facility. Nice.
That was a good hit.
Dude, I like how that sounded like a cartoon gun. It just went shit, like it's like, dang, man. But
Someone said in the comments that's the real life version of Just Stop Oil. I guess you could say so.
man, but they ain't throwing around orange powder or whatever. They're throwing around that orange flame. You know what I mean? Like they're really burning this stuff down. But nevertheless, the hit on Kalachnidannu, from what we understand, was fairly significant and has caused a decent amount of damage once again to Russian oil infrastructure. Now, this is something very interesting to note. From what we understand, there are several refueling nodes up and down the Don River, which is a major river traveling through the southern area of Russia. There is actually, interestingly enough, and many people do not know this, there is a small little canal right here that actually travels from the Don River, and I'll show y'all, through this area of southern Russia, and then through here, and I believe the canal goes further down this way, and then it turns northwards, and it actually deposits the vessels, which you can see one of them right here, back off and into the Volga River. So this is actually a major economic corridor for ships that are traveling up and down the Volga River to actually make it to their way to sea, actually out into the Black Sea and into the Mediterranean and the rest of the world at large. And there is a lot of ship infrastructure that exists in this area. From what we understand, Azov has served as a major refueling node. We can see that node right here for quite some time, but that has been knocked out due to Ukrainian drone attacks just a few weeks ago, pretty much completely. We also understand that further up the way in the city of Volgodonsk, there may possibly be another refueling node that we have heard about, and I haven't really been able to confirm that much about it. We believe that there may not be a refueling node here in the area of Volgodonsk. So that means that the only other refueling node that we know about for a fairly good certainty would be in Kalachnidannu, which is on the very bend of the Don River. This means that if Ukraine was able to hit that oil facility and decisively destroy it, that means that the Russian Federation may be completely deprived of any kind of refueling abilities along the entire stretch of the navigable Don River, and also the canal network that connects it to the Volga River at Volgograd. This could be a massive repercussion for the Russians, because this means now Russian commercial vessels wouldn't even be able to press forward from Rostov-on-Don and the refueling node at Azov and further north and into the area of Kalachnidannu. That may not even be possible anymore either, and they may be completely without oil resources along the entire river route, which is a very important thing infrastructure-wise, and a crippling blow for the Russian Federation's shipborne transportation, a large part of their war effort currently within this region, as it seems that it may be grinding to a complete stop because of these decisive attacks by Ukrainian forces. We were also able to get some really big news out of the area just outside of Rostov-on-Don that a major 500 kilovolt substation near to the town of, and let's see here, near to the town, I think I found this earlier, it was near Yedino or some town like that, but it was stricken quite heavily by Ukrainian drones, and from what we understand, the entire substation is down, meaning that the Russian power grid in this area is down 500 kilovolts. And let me check something really quick. Yep, yeah, it's near Yedino, because we can actually see Yedino right here on the sign. This is Wodino, because the little backwards end is an I. This thing, the kind of weird looking A, is a D. This thing here, like the O with a little I connected to it, that's actually an W sound, so it's like Wodino, or something like that in Russian, and then the H is an N. It's really weird how the Cyrillic alphabet works, because a lot of the letters are actually Latin letters. In some instances, it's just that they have different pronunciation rules, but nevertheless, we can see that the substation is on fire and burning quite tremendously as this car drives by, proving the severity of the damage. Well, you see the fires burning right there quite ferociously on some of the key parts of this electrical substation, and this entire thing has been knocked out for the large part. Really nice to see and really good to know, as the Ukrainians seem to be trying to knock out strategic infrastructure, as well as now they're starting to enter a little bit of a gray area where they're also hitting civilian-ish infrastructure, but in the summertime, trying to knock out the power grid around the Rostov-on-Don area, which is a major staging area and command center for the Russian Southern Military District, which is in charge of conducting the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, while we are live on air right now, no joke, we are live on air right now, this is happening, another air attack 16 hours after the one that we were just covering right there, is now occurring on the city of Rostov-on-Don. And one video has come out showing the air defense which is small arms fire, being shot up into the skies as they attempt to shoot down the incoming drones heading towards Rostov-on-Don. We currently do not know what their targets are. We have not heard any reports of explosions yet, but we have seen that there are Ukrainian drones loitering above the city currently and are most likely conducting some sort of an attack. But we can see the small arms fire right there. It doesn't seem as though the Russians have any spotlights, so it seems as though this small arms fire is wildly placed, really just hoping to hit something in the dark.
Now, if I recall correctly, I thought Russia was moving some of the air defense out of Crimea to move back to Rostov to try to protect the city, but I don't see that.
No, not correct, Matthew. They moved it to Belgorod, but we don't even see it there either, so I don't really know where they went. It's like, where did they go? Because I'm not seeing it in Belgrade, I'm not seeing it in Rostov, and it's not in Crimea anymore. I think, honestly, they may have taken those air defense systems and moved them in somewhere entirely different, maybe around Moscow or St. Petersburg, to further insulate the major cities from any further attacks by Ukrainian drones. But who knows? We see the small arms fire continuing. We haven't seen them shoot anything down yet, any visible explosions on the ground or in the sky of a drone that has been intercepted. So it appears that the air defense efforts by the Russians in Rostov currently has been wildly unfruitful, just by the one video that we've gotten. At the exact same time, in the northern area of the Ukrainian front line near to the city of Belgrade, we were also able to hear that the air raid sirens were sounding in Belgrade. We also got to hear some explosions as well. We didn't see any visible sign of an explosion, so we don't know what the boom is coming from, but here's the clip of the air raid sirens that are currently sounding inside of Belgrade as well at the moment. That's the end of that clip, but still showing us that at this very moment, there is an ongoing air raid right now within the area of Belgrade and also within Rostov-on-Don. Still, to make this quite clear, we have not gotten any clear indications live right now of any kind of damage or explosions that have occurred within the area of the city of Belgrade or the city of Rostov-on-Don. All that we can confirm on air currently is that both cities appear to be under attack by Ukrainian drones as a result of Russian actions that occurred earlier on in the day. And now it's time for me to switch a little bit from a very positive outlook on the war into one that we very rarely show on this channel. As many of y'all will know, that we always try to be a very positive and uplifting channel, because although war is of course horrendous, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be demoralized or stressed out about it every single step of the way. Because regardless whether you're very stressed out about it or whether you feel fine about it, the war will go on each and every day. So why feel like you're overwhelmed with it when you can feel a little bit better about it and know that the Ukrainians are doing fairly well? However, today isn't one of those days, and sadly we're going to have to actually go into something that was so horrendous that it's really outraged and shocked the entire world, and the Russian response to their own actions that have occurred today in Kyiv have even been more shocking to many more people, especially us here on this channel, considering the video footage and proof that we have, and also statements that have been made by the official representative or the permanent representative of Russia at the United Nations today. Many of y'all will have already heard of this attack, and many of y'all know that it was the children's hospital that was attacked within the city of Kyiv. Like many nights in Ukraine, another missile and drone attack occurred on the country overnight, of course launched from multiple different sources by the Russian Navy at sea in a very limited capacity, by Russian ground-based launchers within the territory of the Russian Federation in Crimea, and also by strategic bombers firing their missiles from the area north of Kursk and also from the areas within the southwestern region or the southeastern region of the Sea of Azov. These missiles and drones made their way into Ukraine, and while Ukrainian air defense was extremely valiant and heroic in its efforts to shoot down as many drones and missiles as they could, many of them started to make it on through, as the Russians have found that there's a little bit of a weakness to the Patriot surface-to-air missile system. Because of the specific way that a Patriot surface-to-air missile system targeting an acquisition radar works, the Patriot air defense system only has a 60-degree arc and a 120-mile range where it can pick up and attempt to destroy incoming Russian air targets. This means that if you are able to make it through that 60-degree arc or around the 60-degree arc, you are largely going to be impervious to Patriot fire, as it is not detecting the incoming air targets to be able to engage them and destroy them, from what we understand. The Russians decided to use this to their advantage and flew the missiles on a specific flight from Kursk, north around Chernihiv, and then around the Sea of Kyiv, and then did a 180-degree turn. It looked as though they were heading towards Zhytomyr. The missiles then conducted a 180-degree turn and flew into Kyiv from the western direction, where no Patriot air defense missiles were facing. The missiles were able to largely make it into the air defense without, the air defense perimeter without being fired upon or destroyed, and the results were incredibly shocking and incredibly terrible, to say the least. Sadly, we cannot show a lot of the video and picture evidence from the result or the aftermath of the strikes at the Children's Hospital, because all of it was so gory and disturbing that it would not be suitable for viewing on YouTube. There is evidence out there of it, however. Usually we try and include as much evidence as possible, even if it's something this grave, because there's always a large amount of detractors on the internet who would like to say that this is nothing more than misinformation, and no Children's Hospital was stricken, no one was hurt, and no one was killed. But the reality and the fact of the matter is that many families and many children were wounded and killed in the result of this attack. Numbers are still coming out at this moment, so we will not be reporting the numbers until about a day later when the final wounded and killed numbers come out. But we can show you all the video footage of the missiles as they started to arrive within the area of the city of Kyiv where this Children's Hospital was, and began to hit it not just once but about 4 times on film. Here is the first video footage that we have of the missiles arriving. This video started after 2 missiles had already made impacts within the area. One of them hit something off to the right side of the screen that is not the Children's Hospital. The pillar of smoke to the left side of the screen, which y'all will see in a second, is actually the impact site of the Children's Hospital, which had already been hit once, and then in the course of this film was hit about another 3 times. And so here's that footage. Here comes another X-101. That is the second X-101 to hit the Children's Hospital. Here comes a third.
Ебать, это 4-я нахуй! 5-я,
and a
блядь!
fourth.
Тупо в Артема! Ебать, пиздую слышу! Охуеть!
And we can see a 5th missile hitting another target somewhere off to the right. But
now, if that doesn't scream intentional, I don't know what does. Y'all might have seen the other day that some of the Russian propagandists, including some U.S. citizens, were trying to sell this as not Russia hitting the hospital. They were trying to sell it as Ukraine hitting the hospital, which is absolutely insane, because we even have up-close images of the missile itself showing that it is indeed a Russian missile hitting the building. It's just crazy to see that. This is as low as it gets. One of the worst things I've seen happen in the war in a long time.
Is one of the most heinous attacks that has ever been seen, and the deliberateness of the attack is something that is truly insane and bizarre. And also the criminal acts of people who have been denying the proof of this attack has also been insane as well. To really quickly show y'all something, because it's very important for us to make sure to cover our tracks and make sure that we say things that are very clear and have a lot of fact behind them. There has been a claim made today. And really quickly, before I show you all this stuff, I want to make sure that we can get to the other footage that we have from the attack. So let me move y'all on to that really quickly, and then I'll show y'all the information that we have. But let me really quickly move us on to the second video of the attack, which is right here. And let me show y'all that before we move into the analysis and also move into debunking the flat-out lies that have been put out over the past 24 hours by Russian and pro-Russian propagandists, not only in the Russian Federation, but also here in the West as well. But here's the next clip that we got from the city street nearby to the Children's Hospital, showing the attacks up close.
Пошли десь в другу сторону.
That's the end of that clip, but once again showing the multiple X-101 missiles hitting the building, and of course causing a massive loss of life and many wounded, including a large number of children that were inside of the hospital. To make this quite clear, that hospital was specifically a children's hospital. It was not a general hospital meant for just the wounded and of course injured, or the possible near-to-death cases. This was for children in particular, and the hospital was stricken not once but 4 times by guided missiles. From what we understand, the missiles were an X-101 variety. Now, to really quickly put this out there, many pro-Russian propagandists here in the United States have actually made the claim that it is the fault of Norway, and the Russians have also made the exact claim as well. It appears that the Western pro-Russian propagandists are following the story that the Russian government put out, that the missiles that ended up hitting this building 4 times were actually NASAMS missiles that were provided by the United States of America. That would be markedly untrue. And let me show you all the video footage that we have to make sure to disprove this claim outright. So, these are the missiles that we saw on film that ended up hitting the facility. So let me really quickly, let's see, right there. So right there, for a short frame, you can actually see that this missile has distinctive wings, which jut out of the side of the missile as it's flying on its way to its target. Now, to someone who has not paid attention to the war for 867 days, someone could say that this is any kind of missile and they believe it at face value. However, I have been covering this war, and Matthew has also been covering this war for 867 days at this point, and we have seen an endless amount, most likely thousands of Russian missiles that have been fired into Ukraine, and we can generally tell you what each kind is just based off of their general shape in a video. This is clearly an X-101 missile fired by the Russian Federation. To back this up a little bit better, we were able to get a picture right here of a KH or an X-101 missile right here, and you can once again see the very clear sign of the wings that are mounted onto the missile. This is a very clear sign that this is an X-101 missile. And really quickly, to move y'all over here to the KH-101, which is also called the Kodiak in NATO reporting form, is the missile that was used. And let me see if I can show y'all the missiles slung under the wings of a Tu-95 right here. But nevertheless, this is the missile that was used and fired. To really quickly show y'all another video, this is actually a video, really quickly, that was put out on Wikipedia of a KH-101 missile being used and operated inside of Syria, most likely within the late 2010s. So here's the footage showing them loading the missile onto a Tu-160. One second, let me move forward so that way we can show y'all the deployment of the KH-101. So they dropped it, and when you see the KH-101 being dropped right there, in a second the motor will activate. When you see the next one being prepared to drop, and I'm not really sure if in this clip they showed the wings deploying, and they did not. But nevertheless, the wings...
Could you believe, like, actually being the pilot of that aircraft, dropping and firing those missiles like we just saw in that video, knowing that those are heading toward a children's hospital? Like, that's an evil state. Russia is truly a war criminal state. It is terrible.
It is terrible. And also, this is the best example that we can get. This is once again from that same air operation in Syria, but this is them firing a KH-101 missile from a Tu-160. But nevertheless, the shape of this missile is very distinct, and it is, without a shadow of a doubt, a KH-101, a Kodiak missile fired by the Russian Federation. Many Russian and pro-Russian sources have claimed that these were actually NASAMS missiles that were ending up hitting the children's hospital one after the other, which makes no sense at all. As well, really quickly for me to try and explain this, if these were NASAMS missiles that were being fired at the incoming Russian missiles in an attempt to shoot them down, these missiles would be taking a very, very different trajectories from each other, because they would all be fired one after the other. They're not all fired all simultaneously. They would be fired one after the other, and these missiles would have all missed their interception point, or the apex for the large part, one after the other, meaning that the impact sites of multiple NASAMS missiles that somehow missed their target and then went nosediving into the ground, they would have all hit completely different locations in the city of Kyiv instead of hitting a single spot 4 separate times. Not only that, but the KH-101 is a far larger missile than a NASAMS missile. This is something that a lot of people do not understand about the NASAMS system is that the NASAMS uses a modified air-to-air missile in its operation. So really quickly, let me go and show y'all what kind of a missile I'm talking about, and you'll see that it's noticeably different. The NASAMS system actually uses a modified AIM-120, which is an active radar homing missile that was originally designed for an air-to-air role, and then later on, the NASAMS was invented with a modified AIM-120 that would then operate in a surface-to-air role, a lot like a short-range surface-to-air missile. Because of this, the range on these missiles is greatly decreased, but not only that, the size of these missiles compared to a KH-101 is a lot smaller. It is nowhere similar to that of the KH-101, and its visual identifier would show that it would have a much slimmer profile, and most noticeably, absolutely no large wing structures sprouting from the middle of the fuselage of this missile. Clearly, the Russians have attempted to lie today about what kind of missiles ended up hitting that children's hospital, and although it is clearly, by film, a KH-101 Kodiak missile, they are claiming that they were multiple AIM-120s that ended up being fired from a NASAMS and ended up all simultaneously hitting the exact same children's hospital within the span of seconds, which makes no sense whatsoever. I cannot state that enough. It makes absolutely no sense, and the fact that the Russians have now started to even change the story further, claiming that there were actual military targets inside the children's hospital they were hitting, and that the Ukrainians are on a level of ISIS, on a terrorist level, using people as a human shield, is absolutely bizarre as well. As you would think that if the Russians weren't as barbaric animals as the Ukrainians, as the Russians claim the Ukrainians are, why in the world would they hit a children's hospital 4 times because they believe that there is Ukrainian military forces inside of it? That seems to me to be a little bit bizarre, because usually in the United States, the rules of engagement claim that if there are any civilians inside of a building that is being occupied by a military force, it is as highly advisable as possible to not use any kind of fire against that building, to largely just not shoot at the building at all. Sometimes that was worked against in Afghanistan and Iraq in some instances, but nevertheless, that was the general rules of engagement. And to see the Russians do something this barbaric and this low, and then attempt to lie about it or attempt to twist the story to justify it, is absolutely sickening and depraved to the lowest degree. I've never seen anything like this before. Truly, ever. We have seen in the past when the Russians conducted atrocities like in Kharkiv or in Kramatorsk, there was generally no comment made by the Russian Federation about the attack or the atrocity that they had just conducted. The Russians have gotten to such a sick level mentally that not only will they conduct heinous acts against the Ukrainian people, quite deliberately from what we can tell, they will openly try and twist the story to where the Ukrainians are the evil doers of the story, although they were the helpless victims inside of that children's hospital. We rarely ever cover stories like this on this channel, but the sickness of an act like this is something that we could not go without covering on this channel tonight. We want to make sure that while we continue covering this war and we try and keep everyone's spirits high, we remind you all why the Ukrainians continue to fight this war. They don't fight it because it's fun. They don't fight it because they want to. They are fighting this war for the existence of their nation, and most importantly, their people and their culture, against a nation that is clearly hell-bent on not only inflicting as much pain and suffering on the Ukrainian nation as possible, but on the common citizenry themselves, as a direct reprisal for them being stubborn enough to want to be an independent and free people. This is the kind of conflict that is being fought around the globe currently, not just in Ukraine, but in other areas like in Taiwan and in the Middle East, and also within the area of the Korean Peninsula currently. This war has gone hot, and is of course showing us what can happen in other regions of the world if the West does not stand up against these kinds of evil thugs and shows them what in the world would be in store for them if they do such depraved and sick things as a regular occurrence of life. Many people have been talking about this today, and many people have heard that even with the Russians striking this children's hospital and causing a massive loss of life, particularly on children, the United States has still refused to lift restrictions on U.S. weapons usage inside of the Russian Federation and territories near to the border of Ukraine. And a lot of people have been putting out their thoughts on this and what they think of current U.S. actions in regards to the atrocities that have just been witnessed inside of Ukraine today. And a lot of people seem to be very outraged with the United States' response and our seeming toothless actions against the Russian Federation at this point. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So it looks like 62% of the audience said the USA is being extremely weak on this decision, while 17% said, I really don't agree with it, but it's not really extremely weak. And at 13% said it's sad, but we can't act too rashly. And on this one, I gotta say that the news about the children's hospital getting hit really made my stomach turn. That was really very sad news to see, and also angered me to no end to see the Russians strike such a target like that. That is clearly a civilian target, and they hit it multiple times. That was sickening to see. And then the U.S. had the gall to come out and say, we will not lift restrictions to allow Ukraine to hit Russian air bases right beyond the border where we're told them they can't hit so far. So to me, I'm with the 62%. I think the USA is being extremely weak on that, and they should reverse that and allow Ukraine to hit those air bases to prevent the Russian aircraft from taking off and hitting more targets like they just did. That seems to be common sense to me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that, in my honest opinion, I think that this is a extremely weak move by the United States of America. I would say that it is a weak position for the United States to be putting itself in on a diplomatic sphere. It is also a weak position for our posturing within the area of Eastern Europe. Not only is it a weak posturing in Eastern Europe, but it's also giving ideas to other nations around the world that our posturing may even be less resolute within areas where we do not even have an extremely strong alliance or any formal agreement with other nations, for example, the Philippines and Taiwan, which are currently dealing with China. This is something that I would say is quite concerning to me, because it shows that the Russians can openly conduct atrocities and spin the truth like they have been over the course of this entire day, and we are more than happy to overlook an atrocity like this and make sure that Ukraine doesn't really have a way to respond or react to the Russian Federation's dangerous and criminal actions that have been conducted so far. I believe, and I will say very briefly, that of course I'm not in this position, but if hypothetically, let's say that I was the President of the United States today, if I was the President of the United States today, I would immediately grant Ukraine permission to use U.S. long-range weapons of every variety, including the ATACMS, and also any other variants of the long-range ATACMS that we provided, to be able to strike Russian airfields and military facilities within the farthest ranges of the ATACMS missile. The ATACMS has a range of about 260 miles, which would put most Russian airfields that are currently operating strategic wings of the Russian Federation, such as any bomber brigades, or bomber air regiments, or bomber air brigades, or any other fighter bomber air brigades, such as the Su-34s, which are currently pummeling Ukrainian villages near to the area of the border. I would give permission for all of those to be stricken and destroyed by Ukrainian long-range weaponry. I would say that it is something important to note that it is, of course, advisable to try and avoid an all-out conflict as best as possible. However, one must remember that we cannot avoid a point of an all-out conflict to the element of appeasement, or the point of allowing thugs and largely almost cartoonish villains of the world that are running these nations to continue to run amok, and not only that, threaten our sphere of influence and also our way of life. This is something that can no longer stand, and is something that I believe must be have a stop put to it, or that this particular instance should be made an example of. In my honest right, I would say that this should serve as not only a message to the Russian Federation and a furtherance of allowing our interests to be secure within the area of Eastern Europe. This action, allowing U.S. weapons to be used deep inside of the Russian Federation, would also serve as a message to other nations around the world that are currently starting to become highly erratic and highly unstable, because currently they are trying to achieve their own interests for their own sphere of influence. For example, the Chinese within the area of the South China Sea, the Senkaku Islands, and also Taiwan as well. We need to make sure that a message is sent not only to the Russian Federation, but to the People's Republic of China, that these actions, hostile actions against a Western sphere and against Western interests, will be met with strong resolve and strong force on the part of the United States to make sure that their actions will be thwarted and will not be worthwhile to pursue, because it will be so costly to pursue it that they won't gain anything in return that would have made it worthwhile. The exact same thing needs to be done towards North Korea, and we need to be able to show that although North Korea is a rogue regime with nuclear-armed weapons, that the United States will not back down as a matter of principle to thugs who have weapons of mass destruction. This is something I believe is a very important time and a very important moment in this world to make this kind of stance and posturing for the United States and the rest of the Western sphere. We are dealing with one of the most dangerous and uncertain times that has been seen in this world since the years of World War II, and this is a moment that doesn't require weakness and a softer back spine. This requires a moment moment of strong will and strong decision making to be done. If we do not make these strong and somewhat costly or risky decisions now, we will have to end up with more costly and more dangerous consequences as a result of our ineptitude years down the road. So I would say that a strong and decisive action needs to be made as a response today. Otherwise, we will pave the road for a bloodier and more dangerous future for years to come. So I hope that that does address that fairly well, in my opinion, because what I saw today was absolutely terrible. But if you would like to see someone like me be in charge of this nation and make sure to look out for Western interests, not, of course, being a warmonger, but having strong resolve when a strong resolve is needed, you know who to vote for in 2040. Because currently, things are just not looking that well, posturing-wise, for the United States strategically, not only in Eastern Europe, but really worldwide. But with that, it is time for us to move on and into a little bit of something interesting that we've actually been able to hear in the United States today, as we were able to hear that within Washington, D.C., President Zelenskyy actually arrived today and is inside of Washington, D.C. for the NATO summit. He also visited the Holocaust Museum inside of Washington, D.C. today, which is something that is very interesting because Matthew and me have actually gone to the Holocaust Museum in real life, and it was actually a really interesting and really somber experience. It's one that reminds you a lot of the atrocities that occurred in Europe during World War II, and once again reminds a lot of people of the kind of atrocities that could continue to happen in the modern day if people forget about the evils of the past. But nevertheless, very interesting to see Zelenskyy make a visit to such an important museum in the United States currently, and we were also able to hear a very shocking announcement from the United States Department of Justice today, as we were able to hear that they seized a total of 1,000 bot accounts on Twitter. We are currently reporting this news from Twitter right here, right now. They were able to seize a whopping 1,000 of these accounts and were able to make sure to destroy them as well. Apparently, according to the information the Department of Justice has released, these accounts were masquerading as Americans and promoted pro-Russian government narratives to the American public. It appears that the Department of Justice is trying to take a stricter measure against foreign voices attempting to sway the American public discourse through posing as Americans online. I would say that these kinds
Also, another interesting fact as well is all those accounts were actually AI enabled, so they were actually pretty realistic. You would have thought they were real people when they spoke, but they were all fake, 1,000 fake ones powered by AI, which is crazy to see. That shows you how far information warfare has really gotten, considering they can plug in AI now to fake accounts. That's crazy.
And I would say that that is absolutely insane. And it really starts to beg the question, how much of the American public discourse in the modern day is not being spearheaded by Americans, but is being spearheaded by malicious actors overseas in the People's Republic of China and the Russian Federation that are attempting to sway the American public mindset or even start to embroil people to the point of blows against each other inside of America. And it really starts to beg the question, at least in my opinion, how much of American modern, well, not to talk about this on a political level, so I'm going to say no politics on this, but just to make the statement and to provoke the thought on it, how much of the modern American political discourse hasn't been shaped by Americans, but has been shaped by the Russians and Chinese through social media platforms, furthering certain kinds of destructive messaging while putting it under the guise as being an American? How much of that has ended up being from overseas influence? In my opinion, after studying a lot about how the Chinese have operated in the present day, I would actually say quite a lot of it has been, and it's not at all a positive influence. There is no aim that the Russians or the Chinese have in terms of conducting these kinds of psychological operations on the American public to try and sway America to being a friend of Russia or China. These efforts are completely destructive in nature, and they're attempting to turn Americans against each other and make them view their neighbors as their worst enemy, as opposed to the foreign adversaries that the United States should truly be viewing as their adversaries around the world, both China and Russia. Sometimes we actually believe that the Russians and Chinese work in concert, spurning both sides of the, I guess you could say, political discourse in America to further and further extremes and attempting to make each other believe that the other is the true evil of the world, as opposed to the foreign rivals of the United States that are currently out there right now, both Russia and China. This is something that I have to say is a very interesting move by the Department of Justice. Is one of the first times that we've ever seen this kind of an action being taken, especially on the cyberspace, trying to remove these forms of pretty much illicit international voices trying to sway the American public opinion, and it's something very interesting to see. And a lot of people are wondering, this is starting to become a very common thing. We're not only seeing that the Chinese and the Russians are doing this, it has been argued that even other groups are trying to conduct this form of AI-based support or speaking for the large part. And a lot of people are wondering, does Ukraine possibly do the same? Now, whether Ukraine does or not, it's a bit of a question. We're not entirely sure. But a lot of people are wondering, is that also beneficial to support the Ukrainian side that way? It's just an interesting question, and it seems as though a lot of y'all are currently talking about that right now. But since we're on the topic of bots, and we've seen a lot of bots in the live chat tonight, and oddly enough, I've been seeing a very interesting flavor of bots coming to our live chat tonight. They are anti-Semitic bots in particular. I don't know what it's been with that tonight. I don't know if you've noticed that either, Matthew, but almost every single bot has come in with Talmud being in their name somewhere. Have you noticed that?
Oh man, I've seen some vile stuff, and I don't know what it is. It's like they're coming in with like really hardcore anti-religious comments, like very like vile ones at that. So I've seen it too.
Man, I'm telling you, it's incredibly bizarre. It's a very weird phenomenon because we've never seen bots like that before in this kind of a number. But nevertheless, they are flooding in droves, and bots make up a large part of the internet nowadays. We actually heard that on Twitter, there are more bots on Twitter than there are actual people that have registered accounts. So a lot of what's said on Twitter isn't even real people. Most of it is actually just bot activity, trying to support one thing or another. But nevertheless, one thing that is really interesting is that on this channel, we have an absolute no toleration policy on bots. If we ever see a bot or we ever see bot-like activity, Enforcer Matt with the ban hammer ends up banning every single one of them, which keeps our live chat bot-free and largely a lot more enjoyable than really any other live chat out there. And it is something to note that we take pride in that bot banning activity. It is something that this channel has taken a big part of, and a lot of people are always proud to hear the bot begone spray being whipped out and used on the bots to get them on out of the chat. And that brings us to tonight's special announcement. On officialenforcerstore.com, you too can get a
shameless plug. Let's go.
Shameless plug. You too can get a limited edition Bot Begone t-shirt. They are $25 US a piece and have our own custom-made Bot Begone spray on the t-shirt. These things are incredibly nice. They're very good. We have many LSA t-shirts here in this house, and these are from the exact same manufacturer with the exact same quality. They are incredibly cool. Loads of people have already gotten them. And of course, this is a limited edition run. They are 100% premium soft cotton tees made from 100% American cotton. And they are also Gildan for premium quality. We make sure to get that premium quality side of things. It also has the Bot Begone artwork on it. And 10% of all of the profits made off of these purchases will be donated to United 24 to help them out in the war effort and to continue to help the Ukrainian government to try and at least delay or greatly stymie the heinous actions of the Russian Federation. Not only that, one other thing that we have to point out about the Bot Begone shirt is that it comes in multiple different colors and multiple different sizes. It comes in black, sand, military green, probably one of my favorite colors for the shirts, navy, dark heather, and light pink. It also comes in multiple different sizes from small to 5XL. And you can get an unlimited number of these things if you want to. You could get dozens of them. You could get a couple of them. You could get just one of them. But the support does help this channel to keep on running. And another thing is that this is a limited time only. We will be only running this limited edition Bot Begone spray shirt up until Saturday of this weekend, meaning that it will only be available for only a couple of more days. So if you want one of these, make sure to get one because they will not be coming around again. This is a one-time run. We are guaranteed of that for sure on this one. Some other ones may come back as limited edition re-releases in the future, like the LSA flag, which may be a lot sooner than expected, but this one will not be coming back again. This is a single one-time limited edition design celebrating the Bot Begone spray, and so we hope that y'all get one because not only does it support the channel, it also supports United 24 as well, as 10% of the profits are donated to United 24. And so, I hope we address that shameless plug fairly well, because we have to make sure to let y'all know, because if we don't let y'all know and then this ends up running out, or the limited edition ends on Saturday, that's it. So we want to make sure that y'all know about it, so if y'all want one, y'all can get one, because they are incredibly cool, and it also supports the channel. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And before we move on into the Ukraine war news itself, and start to talk about all of the major developments that have been happening on the front lines there, we want to make sure to address the question about the bot. Speaking of the Bot Be Gone spray shirt, which is limited edition run, and you can find on officialenforcerstore.com. The link is in the description below. But a lot of people are saying that Ukraine might do the same with the bot farms, just like the Russians are. And Matthew, what are people saying about that, and what are you thinking about it?
All right, so after we learned that the U.S. busted a Russian AI-enabled bot farm posing as Americans, the question to the audience is, does Ukraine use the same tools? And 46% said yes, Ukraine probably does use the same tools, while 25% were unsure, 18% said no, Ukraine probably does not do that, and 11% said yes, but it's 100% justified. And in my mind, I would say that Ukraine is almost most definitely doing that, and they should be doing that, because information warfare is a new type of warfare that goes hand in hand with actual combat, and Russia does it on a large scale, and I'm sure Ukraine does it as well. We're not really privy to what Ukraine does on their end, but I'm sure it's effective, because obviously they have a pretty good amount of support on the internet as well, and I'm sure their information warfare is a big part of that. So, to me, I think it's justified. It's just simply another form of warfare, and Ukraine would be wise to leverage their side to make sure they can get their message out. So I'm with the probably 11%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would honestly have to largely be with the 47%, that Ukraine does the same thing, and it is a part of the modern warfare sphere to conduct psychological operations, to do things like that. But I am generally of the idea that psychological operations like that aren't really that good. Now, of course, you can't avoid it, so it is an evil, is a necessary evil, is the best way to put it, of a modern war. But I'm not necessarily a big fan of such a thing being so prevalent in the internet space, especially here in the West, because it is unduly shifting Western opinions on something that Westerners aren't really even having a comment on sometimes. Like, for example, pro-Russian speech. A lot of that is being done by pro-Russian bot accounts, which are AI operated, and they take a certain kind of a saying, or really a certain kind of a mantra that the Russians have given them, and they run with it. And that's what they try and mold Western mindsets through. Ukraine does a somewhat similar thing from what I would suppose, because the United States, I'm sure, is conducting a similar kind of a psychological operation in the People's Republic of China, maybe on a smaller form, but I'm just not really a big fan of that on all ends. It just seems like it is such an unfair way of doing things, because with television, there was a fairly good amount of moderation on what would get on television. Usually American-run companies running American-run media channels would put out American takes on things, or at least show you multiple different takes on a specifically American question, on specific things, and you would get an American discourse on it. Nowadays, it's more so of an international discourse, and we don't just see that it spans here in America, it's mostly a Western discourse, also including all of our allies around the world, not just in Europe, but also in East Asia, which is totally fine. And I think that that kind of a discourse is important, because it's not just American questions and American topics that are important, it's largely impacting the entirety of the Western sphere. But when countries like China and Russia leverage these open forums that we have on the internet to be able to speak dangerous kinds of rhetoric to the American public, which could possibly incite riots or possibly incite civil unrest, that is something that is wildly dangerous to me. And while Ukraine may not be inciting riots or unrest, the fact that American public opinion could possibly be swayed by bots from foreign countries abroad at all is something that I find somewhat concerning. I would generally say that there should be some sort of a possible law, at least here in the United States, and maybe other countries can follow, where there has to be some form of authentication that you are an actual American citizen to be able to operate on a platform like X, or at least that would have to be publicly stated. Me personally, I was kind of a big fan of when X actually started to put the state-sponsored media titles on some specific accounts, because it would at least let you know when a Chinese communist shill said something, that is clearly a Chinese communist shill. And so there was really no question. That's a commie right there. It is a commie. They're from China. They're in the CCP. Not really a big question there. It kind of removed a lot of the uncertainty about who these people are and why in the world are they shaping American public discourse. I have a feeling that something like that would be a lot better going on in the future. Like, for example, if you are from the Russian Federation, it specifically states, even if you are using a VPN or something along those lines, because you would have to actually register and prove that you're a citizen of this country, that you are a Russian Federation citizen. And even if you set up AI bot accounts, then you would that would largely be impossible, because you would have to instill more anti-AI and anti-bot measures. But I feel like those kinds of steps in a modern public forum, or at least public forums in plural on the internet, would be such an important thing to do, because allowing unknown anonymous voices being operated by foreign governments into the Western internet forum and allowing them to say whatever they want is inherently dangerous. It can spurn all kinds of dangerous things. Let me just think of a few. Let's see. The Chinese in the Western sphere could try and make it sound like the American government is a weak and dying government, a government that has been in decline and is always going to be in decline, and that just won't change. And the real way forward is authoritarianism of some kind, and that the Americans that believe in this idea, this message that the Chinese are sending that they don't even know are the Chinese, they should rise up against the government and overthrow it in a bloody civil war, possibly, so that way they can make sure that the right kind of authoritarian government will live on. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Russians are spurning on the other side and saying that those wicked, evil people on the other side, those sick communist bastards, they're going to overthrow the government in this country, and they're going to instill some kind of a sick communist regime, some kind of authoritarianism. So to respond to that, we need to make sure to overthrow those sick people before they can overthrow the other side by starting off a bloody civil war and then overthrowing them, and then setting forward another kind of authoritarian regime of another kind of a political flavor for the large part, and then repress the other part of the population. Either way, regardless whether you went the Chinese way or the Russian way, it ends up with America truly being in a severe decline, because it just went through a bloody civil war, which would have destroyed it economically, and also really in every single form of the way, also population-wise as well. And it would, of course, serve to weaken the United States and China and Russia's biggest rival in the world, which is the United States of America. And without the United States of America being the leader of a Western sphere, that means that the Europeans and Asia are now splintered. The Asian sphere is its own, and now China has a lot easier of a time dealing with the Asian sphere, than the European sphere is one of its own as well, and then has to end up dealing with its own problems and situations without any further support from the rest of the combined Western sphere. So overall, I think that those kinds of abilities by the Russians and the Chinese are overwhelmingly destructive and should be curtailed as best as possible. A way should be found to do that, and we should start implementing that as soon as possible. But Matthew, do you have any additional comments?
I would agree with you on that, honestly. Like, there do need to be safeguards in place on these platforms. I'm not sure if getting the government to regulate it is maybe the right way, because I'm always a little bit leery about the government regulating speech, even if it comes down to bots, because that gets dangerous on any level when you start regulating what people can say and can't say, because then someone has to determine what's a bot account, and then it gets really murky. So if the private companies would take the initiative and protect America and put things into place to make sure that these are legitimate people making these accounts, that would be a massive help without the government having to step in. I'm not sure if the private companies would actually do that or not, but they really should. But in the meantime, though, while we don't have any safeguards in place, like it's been like the Wild West on the internet for a long time, I think Ukraine has to do their information warfare on all the different platforms, because if Russia's doing it, you don't want just the Russian narrative out there. You have to have Ukraine combating it with their own form of warfare online to make sure that their narrative gets out there. So it's kind of like nuclear proliferation. We don't want nukes in every country in the world, but the catch is, though, everybody has to have some nukes here and there, or at least some countries do, to keep the checks and balances in place to make sure one country can't hit the other one, sort of like mutually assured destruction. The same thing goes for information warfare, in my opinion.
Well, I got an idea, Matthew, since we're kind of brainstorming this, because I would agree, the United States government directly stepping in and moderating speech is not that great of an idea. Although I would say that if it was necessary, maybe as an emergency measure, but emergency measures usually become permanent measures, and that's something we would generally want to avoid. What if the United States government worked directly with major internet forums and started to work with them to come to agreements where, of course, it wouldn't be required by statute and it wouldn't be an act of Congress, but these companies would all work in concert to implement some sort of a uniform system to identify bots and to identify possible foreign nationals that may be attempting to sway American public opinion.
Man, are we back yet?
Are we back? What do you mean?
Damn, this lag's bad.
You
hear me?
We were here the whole time. Can you hear me?
No, man, you're cutting out like in huge chunks, like 10-second chunks right there.
Huh. That's really weird because it's showing the Discord's connected just fine. Did you hear anything of what I said?
I heard some of it. I heard about a universal system. Continue where you're saying from that.
So implement some kind of a universal system across all major internet forums where they're able to identify and show foreign nationals that are posing as Americans or foreign nationals that are attempting to sway American public discourse. I feel like that probably would be a pretty good measure to make, in my opinion, because it would make sure that the United States government doesn't overstep any kind of a constitutional right to free speech, but at the same time, the private companies running these internet forums would be able to moderate foreign voices to an extent and make sure that they weren't able to sway American public opinion without it being very clear that these are foreign agents working against the interests of the United States.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say I'm going to have to agree with you on that because you still cut out and I just joined the Discord call like 2 seconds ago, so I don't know what's going on my Discord. I might have to restart it though, but generally though, I agree with you in principle.
I believe I've heard, Matthew, what that glitch is. Apparently, if you ever tab out, or you may have tabbed out of Discord at some point, apparently there's a glitch now where it does some kind of a weird thing where it kind of disconnects you from a call. So you can't really tab out. You kind of got to like open it and then just minimize the tab for it to work. Apparently, it's a really common glitch nowadays on Discord.
Huh, yeah, it really pisses me off though. I was trying to like get into the debate with you, but I'm sitting here like desperately trying to make out like 10-second segments. But overall though, you're saying you want like in short, you're saying a universal system to check people's identities. Is that what you're saying?
For the large part, kind of, sort of. Like there was a lot more nuance to that, but just for the sake of time, yes.
Okay, yeah, I would tend to agree with that as well. There needs to be some type of checks on the thing for we can't have like random accounts like going and creating fake emails left and right. Like even if it's not happening on a large bot farm level, even people doing that on a small level. Like I know people in both communities, the pro-Russian community and also the pro-Ukraine community that do that. And that's not good either, really, to be honest. If we could check that and curtail it, that would be preferable because we should only have real people's opinions coming out and not just a bunch of fake ones that are artificially there to try to change your mind. Like if we could eliminate that, that'd be pretty good. But I'm not sure if we can totally get rid of it. So in the meantime, I'd still say we need some type of warfare online to keep that in check.
I would have to largely agree, and I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat saying all kinds of interesting stuff. Let's see. Let me see here. Someone said, perhaps fix the educational system so there are not so many dumb people believing bots. I hate to say it. It doesn't matter how much you work the educational system. How do I put this a very good way? I don't really think there's a good way to put this. I'm just going to be entirely honest about it. No matter how much you try and fix the education system, I believe that I've come to the point after, and I used to be a very optimistic person when it came to people, but after doing this for over 2.5 years and watching people out there in the natural world, does not matter how much effort you would put into education, there are just going to be stupid people. Like, there are going to be stupid people who come out of even the best education systems in the world and just be absolutely dumb. I mean, there's no way to really fix that. And also at the same time, though, I'm not saying that the government has to become a nanny government and start treating everyone like they're stupid, because the government ought to be working off the assumption that everyone is a intelligent, reasonable person. But there are a lot of unintelligent, very unreasonable people out there. Many of them are actually YouTubers, funnily enough. That's why I've ended up coming up to that conclusion, because there are a lot of them that appear to have absolutely no people skills or any intelligence upstairs, from my own personal experience. So that's what I'm kind of working this off of here. And also, we've run into just a whole bunch of people on the internet who seem not to have that. So I would generally say people will be gullible or people will be really stupid. And also, there's no way you can force anyone to learn anything. Like, you know, someone might not know what the Baltics is, you know, which I feel like is a fairly reasonable thing to know. Like, you know, if you know Europe, there's generally like three big places you know. You know Europe, Scandinavia, the Baltics, and then the Balkans. Like, everyone knows that. Like I feel like everyone ought to know that. Those are like the basic four areas of Europe, at least in most people's minds. But for some reason, that's not the case. So I would just have to say you can't really work an education system to make people smarter. I just don't really think that would work all too well. You just have to kind of make sure to curtail things as best as possible without turning things into a bit of a nanny state where you start regulating everything because the people are too stupid for their own good. It's not good for a government to operate off of that kind of a mindset, but when it comes to foreign voices, you do have to kind of go, well, you know, we can't make people have enough sense to not believe these folks, because there will always be people who believe these folks, whether they are actual Americans or not. But with that,
man, it's better to have a, I'm going to just put this bluntly, it's better to have a dumb free choice than a controlled smart choice. Like, that'll always be the case in my opinion. It's always better to have the free than the controlled, you know, quote unquote smart choice, because all it takes is one not so smart person to get in there and say, "Oh, I think this is smart," and then boom, the whole thing goes kaboom.
I would agree with that. And also, let's see here. I'm seeing some people saying, let's see, you can't fix too. I'm seeing some people say that you can't really. I mean, you really can't, especially if you mix it with arrogance, which a lot of ignorant people are very arrogant. Then you can't fix it at all because they're so confident in their own ignorance that there's no way to educate them. And that's something I found a lot nowadays. Well, you know, I don't really have a lot of experience with this. I'm only 22. So when I say nowadays, I'm saying really throughout my entire life, I have seen, and I would have a feeling that this is fairly normal across all time, that there are plenty of people who are very ignorant or very unintelligent in something, but they're arrogant enough to think that they know everything in that topic, and they'll speak with experience on it. I'm one to personally say, I know a good bit, sure, but I don't know everything, and I'm always open to learning something new. That's why I crack open books and read them. And sometimes I'm completely blown away with something I thought I knew, and then I was completely wrong, and it's something entirely different. But a lot of people are not like that. A lot of people will just take something, and they will run for that for the rest of their life. So they'll hear that the Earth is flat, and they'll hear a whole bunch of weird reasons why the Earth would be flat while everything else in the solar system is spherical, and then they'll just believe that the Earth is flat for the rest of their life. Although people have known that the Earth is round since ancient times, literally since ancient Greece. So, you know, you just got to take it for what it is. But you know, I'm still saying that, while I'm saying that there is a fairly amount of dumb people out there and you really can't change that, I don't believe that the government should work off of, any government in the world should ever work off of, oh, the people are so stupid, they can't make their own decisions, we have to make it for them. Because that's very undemocratic. And that's not really a self-determining government at that point. That is, once again, turning into a form of authoritarianism. So you should still have a self-determining government made up of people who are voting that may be these people. But nevertheless, that's the way it should be, simply because it is the right way to govern. But with that...
And also, it's also another thing as well. It's for someone to be really smart on the decisions that need to be made here, like, you have to be like almost an expert in foreign policy and things like that. You can have a surface level understanding of it, but even at that, it's sometimes not enough to fully appreciate what's going on around the world. Like, some people have good intentions and they'll say, I think this should happen in foreign policy, but in reality, they don't know the exact nuances of the situation to actually say what the right answer may be. But they have good intentions. They're not dumb. They're just simply not fully aware of it, because most people don't have the time to educate themselves on everything about foreign policy and everything about every single issue. So, you know, that's why sometimes it's just good to let people have a free choice, let them try to make the best decision possible, and just go from there, instead of telling people you need to know, or you need to do this, you need to do that, because nobody knows what to believe anymore. They're just like, you know, whatever sounds right to them is what they go with, and that's better than having someone control you, I would say.
Oh my God, dude, speaking of that, oh my goodness, that aggravates me so much. Oh my lord. When the congressional hearings come around and then you hear the absolute ignorance. It's like, what the hell are these people doing? Like, I want to talk to the Department of Energy. So you're telling me that we don't just grab this shit out of the ground? It's like, where'd you think it came from? Like, it's like, where have you been? It's like, I don't, like, that blows me away when people do that kind of stuff. Or better yet, when someone be like, why do we need an alliance with the Indians? It's like, do you, like, I don't know. I don't even know where to go with it. Like, if you are, I just want to say this, if anyone's watching, y'all end up running for a position here in this government, like a congressman, like, you know, a representative or a senator or something along those lines on the federal level, please, by all means, just read up on different areas of the world in the past 100 years and figure out how we're interacting with them, please. Because I just hate it when I hear people get up there on every end. Like, I'm going to be fair here. You know, we have a no politics rule, so I have to make sure to critique both sides fairly here. I cannot stand it when I hear Congress members get up on both sides and they're absolutely ignorant on something. Like, they're like, we've got to be friends with the Indians because they're culturally cool. And it's like, we don't make alliances off of culturally cool. We don't make alliances off of whether we like them or not. We make alliances off of the impertinence and importance of the thing. We don't make it off of anything else. It's like, it just annoys the hell out of me. Like, you know, I could go into the whole rabbit hole why India is such an important country for American relations in the modern day, but it would be pointless. It like the point stands though. Just please make sure to read stuff. And don't read anything, okay? Don't read that weird, wacky, esoteric crap. I don't know what that word even means. I've been recommended that before, and it's goofy. Because if you're telling me that lizard people are running stuff, you've got to be out of your mind, okay? Like, I'm sorry, there are no lizard people.
People call us lizard people.
Yeah,
like,
people,
I know the moment somebody called us lizard people, I was like, okay, now I understand the insanity behind that, because it's like, if they're calling us lizard people, like 23 years old, 22 years old, like, there's some crazy folks saying that.
Yeah, I know, and then also another thing is because we say what we say, which is because I want to say it. You know, and it's not like we're paid by some boogeyman out there. You know, our support, the super chats that you're seeing right now at the top of the live chat, that's the way we make a living doing this. We have been called George Soros funded lizard people multiple times, unironically, because we say what we say. And we've also been called a part of the Illuminati. Now, I'm not a lizard person, and I'm not George Soros funded. It would be nice to tap into that kind of cash, but we don't have that kind of cash here. It would really help us to make a lot better videos, because we could put so much more budget into them. But we don't have that kind of cash, sadly. Don't know George Soros personally. And then we're not lizard people, because, you know, lately I haven't been chilling on hot rocks in the sun, so I don't think I'm a lizard.
Can we get complimentary funding and complimentary check from these people, since they've at least said that we're funded by them?
Yeah.
It's like we could at least get a little funding, like fund free media and fund the Enforcer channel at least. Just no strings attached. That's all.
Yeah, and so when we heard, because, you know, a lot of people sit there, you know, and out there, and I've run into these people still, even through running this channel, and they'll say stuff like there's lizard people and you know, George Soros is running the world, and then we've been called that, and I'm like, that's not the case at all, because we're, according to some weird wackos out there, we are those people, and we're just doing our thing, and we get called that anyways. And it shows me how BS all that is. People just come up with random crap and then they run with it, because that's what they've done on us sometimes. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, because we still got to get to some questions, and then we got to get to the rest of the news for the night. So Matthew, what kind of questions do we have?
All right, so our first question of the night is going to go to, let's see here, it's going to go to Gary Robbins, who puts in a $100 donation, and a huge shout out to Gary for that very generous support. And also, Gary said, Slav Ukraine.
And Slav Ukraini, and thank you for the unbelievable, massive support, Gary Robbins, in helping this channel to keep on running. It is amazing. It is impressive to know that folks like you support this channel and help it to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so I thank you so much, so greatly, for that support and helping it to keep on running, because not only do you make it possible for us to say Slav Ukraini, you make it possible for us to continue to cover not just the news of the war in Ukraine, but news that is important occurring around the entirety of the globe. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support and addressing that incredibly well, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And with that, we're about to be moving on to the next, but I saw a lot of people saying, those people calling you lizard people, they're bots. Oh no. I'm talking about way back in the early days of this channel when we had like 40,000 subscribers. Way back in the day, I used to get emails on this channel's email account, and it would actually be people who would write out entire paragraphs about how I am a demon, and I'm also a lizard person simultaneously, and I'm funded by George Soros and a member of the Illuminati, and all this kind of crazy stuff. And then they would put in a death threat or something, and then they'd list off our home address. And so I know that these people are real people. They were not bots. And there are people out there that are truly that crazy. And so I know that these people are real. All right. They're not bots. They're not trolls. These are real legitimate people out there who believe this kind of stuff, which you can't make this kind of stuff up. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well for some people who were not believing that exactly in the chat. Oh no, they're real. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we are on to the next one.
All right, in our next super chat here, this one is gonna go to, let's scroll up in the spreadsheet and let it load this time. This one goes to Jorge Lopez, who's also a longtime channel legend, and he puts in a $100 donation. And huge shout out to Jorge for that support, very generous. He said, in appreciation of your contribution to the Ukrainian cause, this is my small token of contribution to this unprovoked war to the beautiful people of Ukraine. And the Russian regiment is giving the Russian people a really bad name.
And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for your small token of support to this channel as we've covered this war for 867 days. I would actually say that that is not a small token. That's actually quite a large one, because a $50 super chat is incredibly large. And we thank you greatly for that, because any support is amazing support. And $50 is quite a lot. And we got to thank you.
Actually, a hundo.
A hundo? Well,
yes.
I'll be damned. I'll hang on 1 second. I'm gonna have to go pull up the spreadsheet now, Matthew, because I'm trying to do it all.
Yeah, get on that spreadsheet,
man. I'm trying to
get on that spreadsheet. Matt put a lot of work in the spreadsheet. Take a look at it.
So let's see here. There's the spreadsheet. Let me go grab that thing. Sheesh. So thank you so much, George Lopez. There we go. We got the spreadsheet now, and it's a lot better. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying our contribution to the Ukrainian cause and trying to cover this news. We try our best to not only cover the Ukraine war news, it's the most important thing going on really daily around the world, but we've covered very important things in every corner of the globe, and we like to do the best we can to make sure to inform y'all about what's going on around the world, and also inform y'all about what our sphere of influence is doing. All of y'all watching are from the Western sphere, and what it is continuing to aim and strive for each and every day. We try that the best we can, and I got to thank you so much for appreciating that and massively enjoying it, because $100 support is massive support, and we can't thank you enough for that and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would also say that it is horrendous to see this kind of an unprovoked war carry on for so long and cause so much suffering and loss like it has in Ukraine, especially today with the attack on the Children's Hospital. But nevertheless, I thank you so much once again. And the Russian Federation's government really is giving the Russian people a bad name. And speaking of that, Jorge Lopez, I would say that it is something else of note to me, very importantly, because I'm starting to see this kind of a mindset permeate the public, or, well, not really the public, but more so the Twitter space. Matthew and me have been noticing this quite a lot and talking about this behind the scenes, and I feel like it would be a fair statement to make publicly at this point. I'm seeing a lot of people now are becoming a little bit genocidal on their own against the Russians, and we've been seeing it from a particular group that has started to really become somewhat questionable to us. We're not going to say the exact name of them, but we are seeing that a lot of them are practically calling for an open genocide on the Russian citizenry inside the Russian Federation, which I cannot say enough is an absolutely vile and a reprehensible thing to imagine, that you would repay crimes against humanity conducted by a few in the Russian government and maybe a couple of 100,000 Russians on the battlefield, to then try and repay that against 100 million people who may or may not have had anything to do with this war and may have even been against the war. That is something to me that is wildly disgusting and sick to see, Because what is the West if we are going to stoop to the exact same levels of barbarity and depravity as our foes and adversaries around the world? The reason why we love the West so much and want to support the West and the Western world's interest is because we're supposed to be better than our adversaries and rivals. We're supposed to be a step above them. And while they may conduct atrocities and crimes against humanity and you name it, we wouldn't do the same because we're the Western sphere. We're, to put it quite frankly, we're supposed to be more civilized than that. We are supposed to follow rules and laws that have been laid out by thousands of years of philosophy and ethics here in the West that would make it to where we would find these things to be abhorrent. And so I would have to say that it is quite bizarre to see something like that. And considering that we were talking a little bit about the Russian regime giving people a bad name, people have to remember that it's the Russian government doing these things. It's not the Russian people at large. Because if we had this kind of mindset going throughout all of history, we would have put all of the Germans in concentration camps at the end of World War II. And I think if I remember correctly, the United States actually put Japanese Americans into internment camps in World War II. And we still feel pretty bad about that to this day. So how bad will we feel if we did that to an entire nation of about 100 to 105 million people? And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And also saw someone say, dude, they hit a children's hospital. So that makes it justifiable for a genocide? Like that's what we use as a moniker for now we need to commit a genocide against them? Like, that doesn't seem quite fair to me. Because if I remember correctly, I believe Adolf Hitler, to go into his specific logic for why he ended up conducting the Holocaust, he said that the Jews were responsible for all the Germans that died in World War I, and so for that they should pay. Does that really seem fair? No, because one, that isn't even true, and two, does that mean that a state-sponsored genocide should be conducted? No, that is horrendous. That is reprehensible. And to sit there and try and use the same justifications on a different level to start justifying a possible genocide against Russians who may be our enemy right now, that still is very barbaric, to say the least. And I don't really like the idea of that at all. So I would generally have to be a big proponent against ideas and thoughts like that, because that is not what the Lee Spring Army stands for in the slightest. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Still, thank you once again for the massive support, Jorge Lopez, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are into our last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the location unknowns and the rest of the Frontline news.
All right, and this one goes to BC Skyman, who puts in an $85 donation, and a huge shout out to BC Skyman for that generous support also, and sadly, no comment to address. But of course, BC's always supporting the channel, and we appreciate him very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to say a huge thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep on running. You didn't throw in a comment, and that was actually a lot of super chats that you threw in, but the support means a lot and helps us to keep this stream running. And so I got to say, a massive thank you to you, BC Skyman, for always continuously supporting this channel and making this channel a reality, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here running this channel and running this stream right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are now moving on into the actual Ukrainian frontline news, starting off with our location unknowns, where we got to see that the Russians are now conducting new war crimes, creating foot traps. These are actually Vietnamese-style foot traps that would have been used by groups like the Viet Cong back in Vietnam. The way they work is that they have two pivoting rows of nails in this box. They cover the box so that way you don't see it, and then you step on it, your foot goes in it, and if you try and pull your foot out, it actually causes these bars to lift up, impaling you with the nails. It is a pretty barbaric thing, and it looks as though the Russians are starting to make that a common point of life in Ukraine. Fun times indeed. More war crimes to once again be documented. We were also able to see that the Russians have put a whole bunch of add-ons onto some MTLBs, which is also pretty interesting. They are Mad Maxing the hell out of MTLBs because these things just aren't really doing well.
Man, I'll tell you what, it looks like crap.
It does look like crap. Pretty horrendous stuff. But moving on from that, we also got to see some Russian punishment pits. This is like Russian war crime central in the location unknowns today, but the bad acting Russians, they actually get put in these pits, and then you just stay there. They're too small for them to sit down, so they have to stand up the whole time. It's pretty horrendous stuff. But, you know, that's how the Russians instill discipline, I suppose, in the ranks. But moving on from that, we also got to see a Russian soldier getting forced to sign a contract today, too. The location unknowns were just full of fun goodies in the Russian army today. But you see them dragging him out of his bunk. We can actually see it's a military police guy who was actually trying to drag him out. So when you see more people coming to their aid.
На каком основании вы применяете силу?
You see, this is what I'm saying about you can't really take out your anger on the entirety of Russia, even some members of the military, because this guy clearly does not want to re-enlist, and they're forcing them to sign another contract and continue military service. We see them continuing to fight with the guy.
Why do they even bother trying to have him sign a contract if they're just going to wrestle him into the military?
I don't know. They're pretty much press-ganging the guy at this point, but, you know, the Russians, they gotta follow the law a little bit, right? Like, they gotta get him to sign the contract.
Блять, что творится? Ебаный рот.
They're still fighting the guy. It's taking a lot out of everyone. Oh, and the bunk just collapsed on top of him. Блин.
Понимаете, что вас статья привлекут? 286.
А это причем?
Превышение должностных
Я это не превышение должностных. Иди сюда.
Ебаное дело, сколько?
Наручник надо надеть еще один.
And the bots are out literally hardcore tonight while we're promoting the Bot Be Gone shirt. You're like banning them every single 10 chats or so.
And meanwhile, this fight's getting taken to the ground.
Yeah, and the bunk's been taken out. The bunk has been like obliterated pretty much.
This guy's gonna be great on the front lines. It's not like he's gonna rebel at all.
Nah, he's going to be great. Российский солдат, блядь.
Большой, не хочешь помочь?
Also, by the way, the guys here wearing the red berets that have the black armbands that look like they have a bee and then some kind of a pie symbol on them, that is actually the armband for the Russian military police. So all of these guys are with the red berets and the armbands are members of the Russian military police.
Давай так наденем.
Брыкаться, вот смотри. А? Брыкаться.
Бля, хоть что-то.
Now we can see that 3 military police guys are here. And they're now trying to get him up off the floor. And it looks like they're finally kind of picking him up and carting him off, although they're still not really doing that. So now they're pushing his head into the concrete for some reason.
You know.
Oh, you just cut out. Let me check that really quick. Hello? Oh my lord, Matthew, you kicked both of us out, man. I just saw that.
Man, what the hell's going on with Discord, man? They pissing me off, man. What's up with these connection problems?
Man, they really are pissing me off, man, because it's doing this so regularly now, and it's nothing to do with our internets or anything. It's just Discord. Really, really whack stuff. But go ahead, Matthew, what were you saying?
I was about to say, you know, obviously it's bad they're trying to press gang this guy into the military, but isn't it kind of sad that all their military police officers right here can't even get one guy under control? It's like, what kind of military police are this? They can't even get the guy up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good sight. But once again, showing the dark side of the Russian military for the large part. But also, we got to see the Russian casualty report as well. Oh!
Oh, dang, man. 12, 20 troops and 13 Bobcats. It's a big day.
Man, I'm telling you. But check this out. 1,220 Russian soldiers wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 19 APCs, 62 supply trucks, 7 main battle tanks, 49 artillery pieces, 29 drones, 36 cruise missiles were shot down. Sadly, not the ones who hit the children's hospital, but still a large amount of them were. And 13 Bobcat skid steers were also destroyed as well. It was a fairly good day. It was great to see. Meanwhile, we have this guy here. Over here in the chat. I actually saw this earlier when I was putting this together, Matthew, and this is one of those bots that I was talking about. This guy is called Alan Watson, and this is what he had to say today. Let me just read this to y'all, because this is something interesting that I think should be looked into, or y'all should look at with dismay. Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile hit the hospital. Accidents can happen in war. Kyiv's air defense missile went awry. Video evidence from Ukrainian sources proved the missile that hit the hospital was not a Russian cruise missile.
Man, that's the typical Russian propaganda line they're trying to push on this one.
Yeah. That's a little crazy to me. So, and I like how he says the missile, the singular missile, when we saw 4 of them hit the hospital, and all of them were KH-101s clearly, not AIM-120s fired from NASAMS like the Russians are claiming. Yet this guy right here, which I've seen several times talking on, commenting on the Kyiv Independence Casualty Report, will come in and say something like that. Y'all saw me break it down. Y'all know what I'm saying is true. We were able to back that up with pictures and proof. Yet someone like that will come in and clearly lie about something and show and try and depict something that is clearly not so. That was not a Ukrainian air defense missile. Those were simply Russian KH-101s that slammed into that building. There's no doubt about that. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we're now moving on out of our location unknowns and on into the frontline news. As Matthew has been thrown out of the call again. Oh, what is going on?
Man, what the hell?
What the hell, Jack? You know what? Hang on, everyone. I'm gonna quickly throw up the intro screen. No one go anywhere. It'll only be for like 20 seconds. I'm gonna restart my Discord on my end. Matthew, you do it on yours, and then we'll come back so that way hopefully it'll fix it a little bit. So here we go in 3, 2, 1. Alright everyone, sorry for that short little delay, but we are back. I'm so sorry. We just want to make sure that the Discord connection would be fine and everything for the rest of the stream, because we didn't want y'all to have to deal with us constantly having to figure out which one of us was on air or not. So hopefully that has fixed the problem. But with that, we're now moving on into the Vovchansk area, and also really quickly, I gotta point this out. It is 10:45. We've been in the news segment for an hour and 45 minutes. So we have the entirety of the Ukraine front lines to cover. We're going to be giving a really annotated look at the front lines today. There wasn't really any frontline progress in either direction, either by Ukraine or Russia today, so it really is more just about documenting losses on film, so we're just going to be running through them in that form. But moving up into the Vovchansk front, we did get to see today that the Ukrainians, using an Israeli-donated Rada radar, was able to hit and destroy a Lancet launching unit of the Russians just north of Lipsy. And we can see right here those Lancet launcher units getting targeted. Well, hang on, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Oh, sorry. The Russians actually hit a Rada that was provided by Israel. And here comes the Lancet. And we can see that the Rada got hit. And it looks as though it may be, well, it is on fire. So it appears that the Ukrainians did lose a Israeli-provided Rada radar today around the area of Lipsy. This is actually probably closer to Hlaboke, but nevertheless, it is the loss of a donated radar system. Very interesting to see. Moving on from that, we also got to see that Magyar's birds ended up hitting some Russians today in a drain pipe. Kind of unique, but here's the clip.
Був би на горизонті кульверт, а хробак для нього знайдеться. А може й не один. Нема хробака? Є хробак.
He pointed out the guy in the little tube. Oh, I forgot how to speak English. I'm so sorry, everyone.
Man, this is the worst way. Like, going out in a sewer pipe, like, you wouldn't catch me in there.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. It's a tough time for these guys. But it looks like the drone's going to try and soldier on through the pipe.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
Go.
This drone's flying so effortlessly, it's like somebody's holding it almost.
Oh my goodness, all the way through the pipe. That was actually crazy. We see that the drone actually bounced off the top of the pipe for a second, but then came down right there. Dang.
FPV, що ви бачите, абсолютно виправданий. Цій ситуації в кульверті передував випадок за участі 6 хробаків. Тому ми працювали.
X-Men said, hide and live, Matt, in the sewer pipe. He didn't do the second part very well. He did the first part, though.
He hid, but no live. He had no live in that.
І все ж таки подивимось. Вільних на детокс програму.
Oh, you see the drones keep hovering around the sewer pipe.
Хробака дня.
Or really the drainage pipe, more so.
Нема хробака. А ні, є хробак. Цей фрукт таки вошкався. Недалеко. F7 пішов на сідало. Як то кажуть, на вірочку. Все. А склалася та розблядовочка трошки раніше так. Гуляють вони тут вшестеро. Лупили по дрону із стрілкутнею, антидронною рушницею. Окремий
Seems they found a squad of Russians, really more so a fire team of Russians out here.
задірявлені, про що свідчить той з кульверта, вже потікший. Уп. Туго наш.
I'll never understand the Russians when they hear a FPV drone coming down. Some of them want to jump on the ground and lay prone. It's like, that's probably the last thing you want to do.
Man, really, I would agree with you. And we also got to see that the Russians were destroying some vehicles. Well, actually, the 82nd Air Assault Brigade of Ukraine was destroying some Russian vehicles with some TM-62 anti-tank mines. A delicacy for the Ukrainian armed forces. Look at that. What an explosion. Really impressive, actually.
A big one.
Man, I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
We got a whole montage here of explosions just all over the place, man. They're blowing everything up.
Man, I'm telling you, I love to see it. I love to see it. I'm so happy to see it, don't you? I love it.
Man, I'm just so surprised to see this magnitude of explosions. These explosions are massive.
Man, Chuck Puck. I don't like how they constantly giggle about people losing their lives. What are we supposed to do? Cry? Like really? Like it doesn't matter what I do. This is going to happen anyways. But anyways, moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we also got to see that apparently a Russian peon got blown up today. Check this out. We see the Ukrainians launching the drone. There it goes. Oh, it almost went into the trees, but now it's going towards the peon. And oh, buddy, is it going to get it today. Right into the peon. It hits it right there, and it's gone. Nice to see. Love to see it. We love it. We know we do. Moving on from that and into the area around Svatove, we actually got to see that the Russians tried to hit an M777 today, and they failed. Because this M777 is halfway underground. Like, I don't know if y'all can see this, but they dug this thing literally into the ground. It's almost in like a subterranean bunker of a sort. So the Lancet tried to hit it and failed. It actually missed a little bit. So this M777 survived that you're seeing right there firing. So here comes the Lancet. And it hits right above the opening, actually blows up on a tree. Did not take out the M777, did not take out the artillery crew in the bunker. Pretty whack. I've never seen a bunker like that before, but pretty cool to note. Moving on from that and into the area of Shashlyivka, we also got to see a Russian tank getting hit and boining in this area. We can see the Russians right here taking a little car around on a drive. Really fast.
Man, they're out of control, too. Look at them bouncing around like that.
And here comes the Ukrainian drone.
This is RC smoothing.
Man, RC Smoothie. That kind of sounds nice. Oh! Oh, it's on fire. Oh my lord, dude, it's leaving behind a trail of flames. And they're flooring it now. Oh my goodness. Look at him go.
Oh, look at that. It's like they're rocket propelled.
Dude, you know, for some reason, man, I'm hearing like that Angry Pigs music from the game in the background while they're driving away. You know the one? You know, it goes... No. I'm talking about that... You know that one, like, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, it didn't end up well for them. Look, they ended up on the side of the road in the ditch.
Oh my goodness, dude, they got blown up, and then they started driving at like 90 miles an hour. Pretty wild stuff. But moving on from that and down to the area of Chasiv Yar, we also got to see a little bit of the fighting occurring in the Canal micro district of Chasiv Yar. Here is the clip. Here they go. Oh. Oh. There's a little machine gun fire right there. We now see them moving through the basement. Dude, sweet. He took an advantage of a little opening like that. I like that. I respect that.
That's smart.
Now see them on the move. Trying to get into another building. And with that, that's the end of the clip, but showing a little bit of fighting around Chasiv Yar. Meanwhile, down in the area of Andriivka, we also got to see the 93rd apparently using some North Korean 122mm unguided rockets for the MLRSs. I did not know that the North Koreans had, well, the Ukrainians had access at all to any kind of North Korean munitions, but apparently they have found some. I don't know how and I don't know where, but these are North Korean provided. Kind of interesting.
Man, I would be scared to death to like shoot off those North Korean munitions because I've seen them fail in the Russians, like actually like damaging the operators of the thing, if you know what I mean. And I would be scared to fire it.
Man, I'd be scared to fire it too, but apparently the Ukrainians have got balls bigger than both of ours, so like a big respect to them. But moving on from that, we also got to see some fierce fighting in the Ukrainian trench somewhere around the area of Avdiivka.
Ебать, ебать его нахуй за Донбасс! Сука! Ебать нахуй! За Украину, мать вашу!
And then it just goes quiet.
Man, did he just blow off the end of his gun?
Yeah, he blew on the end of his gun.
What in the world? What a Chad.
What a Chad, man. Real Chad-like behavior right there. But moving on from that and down near Novomykhailivka, we also got to see a Russian tank getting blown up by a mine. Whoa, hey, did I hear copyrighted music? No, I didn't, because we muted it. But there goes the tank. That's a tank. And it's rolling still. Hang on, 1 second. It's going to run over the mine in just a second. Be patient, everyone. Oh, right there. And there goes the turret.
Crap.
Tank is gone. And it hit a
Delayed
third.
destruction.
Dang, I don't think anything's left of that tank. But that's the end of that clip. Pretty wild to see. Meanwhile, we also got to see that the Russian BMP-3 got cooked today in the area too. Check this out. Kind of rare to see a BMP-3 get blown up. They're kind of rare. But we can see the drone flying into the back of it. Catching that thing on fire. Oh, a little ammo explosion right there. Very nice. Like to see it. A little snap, crackling, and popping. And that's the end of that clip right there, but really neat to see. Moving on from that now to Novomykhailivka, we also got to see that around the area of Verbove, a T-90M got destroyed today by a German smart round. This round is very smart. It can do math, which is something I can't do. And
Man, look at that little fella down there in the bottom of the screen wearing an army hat.
Man, look at that little fella. It's General Cherry. I like that. And it looks
Man, it said, "Oui, oui, yeah."
Man, this thing sits there and goes, we need peace. But anyways, we can see the smart round hit the T-90M right on the roof. And the ammunition is already starting to cook. And it appears to have stopped cooking. We see the little Ukrainian drone orbiting around. Look at him go.
Oh, oui, oui. Looks like a shameful Russian tank on the ground, Bliat. Oh.
Oh, that thing's still cooking. It's just really slow. But they got it. That is a T-90M destroyed by a German smart round. Pretty cool. Now with that, that's the end of that clip right there. Really neat to see. And with that, we're moving on into our next one, further down the line. And in the area of Kyiv. Because it's time for us to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy today, if there was one. And if we don't have one from today, we'll have one from tomorrow. Actually, sorry everyone, we actually have one. Really cool.
Hey.
And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Зараз Вашингтон, сьогодні починається саміт НАТО. Б'ємося за більшу кількість ППО для України. Я впевнений, що буде. Б'ємося за більшу кількість літаків F-16. Ми боремось, щоб були. Б'ємось за додаткові гарантії безпеки для України, а це зброя і фінанси, політична підтримка. Б'ємося за необхідні рішучі дії Америки та Європи, те, що зміцнить наших воїнів. Ми робимо і завжди будемо робити все, щоб російський терор програв. Це треба не лише нашій державі, це всім потрібно. Буквально кожному партнеру, всім народам. Охмадит ми відновимо. З Кабміном я на зв'язку. Є перше рішення 100 мільйонів гривень на підтримку Охмадиту. Буде ще 300 мільйонів. Будуть інші рішення і для Києва, і для міст Дніпровщини, і Донеччини. Всіх обов'язково ми підтримуємо. Всім дітям, всім сім'ям, всім, хто постраждав, допоможемо. Дякую і всім нашим людям, які підтримали Охмадит, які збирають на Annotated 24, які допомагають компаніям, волонтерам, всім, хто об'єднався зараз. Це наша єдність, українська, така потрібна. Я дякую лідерам, країнам, всім, хто вчора і сьогодні засудив російський терор. Ми цінуємо вашу підтримку, друзі. Ми на телефоні, ми працюємо з партнерами зараз, щоб ніхто не мовчав, щоб всі засуджували, і дуже хочеться, щоб всі діяли. Щоб були саме ті рішення, які повернуть безпеку. В тому числі рішення тут, у Вашингтоні, тут, на саміті НАТО. Слава Україні!
And Ram Slava. And with that, Matthew, you there? What happened? Where's Matthew? What the hell? Is he gone? Is he not?
Man, why do you end the speech so abruptly? I was trying to run to go get water. I was desperately falling down the stairs trying to get back. Here I'm Slava.
I don't know what happened, but anyways, Ram Slava. And with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 867 of the war. And I'm telling you what, Matthew, you actually had me scared that the internet literally just like crapped out. I was like, Matthew, I was like, where are you, man? I was like, what's going on?
I was literally skipping stairs, like running down the stairs. I was going 3 stairs down at a time, trying to get down the stairs with the water.
Man, I'm telling you, the speeches just ain't long enough anymore. You know, like they used to be like 5 minutes long. Now they're like 2 minutes long. You can't even leave anymore. You just kind of I just kind of had to sit here. But listen, folks, Matthew got some water. So I'm going to let Matthew chug that water here really quickly while I filibuster.
No, I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For real, for real?
Man, I was parched, but I got some water. Now it looks like I said, stop yelling, bruh.
Stop yelling, bro.
No, nobody's yelling.
Bro, I'm not going to stop yelling, bro. There he goes. Hey! Oh, man. I'm telling you what. But still, with that, it's time for us to get on into the second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, is it a fun segment. It's incredibly fun because we don't really get to talk to y'all a whole lot during the actual covering of the news. At least I don't get to personally. Matthew usually gets to a lot because that's really one of his top priorities during that time is being able to cover that kind of news. But for me, well, to be able to talk to y'all, but for me, it's covering the news that we cover every night. So I get to talk to each and every one of y'all personally now, and it is an incredibly fun segment. So make sure to stick around, as we have a lot of fun stuff coming around the corner. But if you did enjoy, make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to subscribe. But we still have so much more to go. And so, welcome back, Defenders. Enforcer here. Top questions. What do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we're moving into our final question segment of the night. And you may have noticed we have one poll left to address. And this one says, reports say that NATO bases were put on high alert due to Russian-linked sabotage plots. And what are your thoughts? So we finally know why the NATO bases were put on high alert, and we now know, like I said, it's the Russian-linked sabotage. So 62% said it's due to a covert sabotage war by Russia, 14% said it seems like there's probably more to the story, and another 14% said it's probably just generous precautions. And we were actually warned about a week or so ago by another NATO official that Russia was preparing a covert war on NATO sites and also military bases to try to sabotage different targets. So to me, this is just a natural extension of that. So we're probably looking at the beginning of a covert sabotage war, and the way the U.S. responded to that threat was by putting the security alert on the bases at a higher level. So there doesn't appear to be any direct attack going to happen on the bases, but there could be some people trying to sneak in to sabotage stuff. So that's why they've raised the level. So that seems logical, but then again, there's always a little bit of doubt in my mind, wondering, is that really the case, or is that just a cover story for something more serious? But I guess we'll have to take it at face value. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's most likely due to some kind of a covert possibility of a sabotage occurring in Europe, because the specific way that they went about telling people to be ready or to be put on high alert shows that they were most likely expecting some form of an attack by irregular insurgencies, or insurgents of some sort. So I would have to say that it most likely was due to some sort of a covert sabotage war, if anything, from what I could tell. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on into the questions themselves. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our first super chat, the last segment, this one is going to go to Andy L., who put in a combined $60 donation, and huge shout out to Andy for that support. And also, he didn't leave a comment, but Andy did mention that today is his birthday. So huge shout out and happy birthday to Andy L., and huge shout out for being a longtime channel viewer and extremely loyal to our channel. We appreciate that very much, Andy. And also, we hope you had a great birthday as well. And Enforcer, what say you?
And happy birthday to you, Andy L. Open parenthesis, it's Andy's birthday. close parenthesis. It is great to know that you're having a birthday today. And I gotta say, I hope that it's been a great one. I hope that you got to enjoy this channel today as well. I hope it was a highlight of the day rather than a low of the day. And I gotta thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping to be possible, helping us to keep this thing running, even on your birthday. I think that's absolutely incredibly kind of you. And we thank you massively once again for being a channel legend and helping this thing to keep on running. And so thank you so much once again. Happy birthday to you. And I hope that you have many more happy birthdays to come. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But also, Matthew, I saw some people saying that was an epic imitation, and you know what they mean, Matthew, when we got into that question segment.
Oh yes.
Welcome back, Defenders. Enforcer here. On to the next one.
And we're actually on to the next one.
No cap. Bussin'.
Oh, okay.
All
right. So our next super chat here goes to Frank the Tank USN, who puts in a $50 donation, and huge shout out to Frank the Tank as well for always supporting the channel. He's a longtime channel legend also, and we appreciate it. He said, "What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything?" Man, that's too big of a question for some young people to be answering. That's too big of a question. Y'all are supposed to answer that question, but if anyone knows the answer, it should be you, Frank the Tank. But Enforcer, what say you?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Some people have told me to read that book. I've never gotten around to reading it, me personally. But one thing I would have to say, if I had to say what is the purpose to life, the universe, and everything, it's whatever you make it out to be. Because there is a certain kind of a philosophy out there that seems to be a self-defeating one. But I find I'm actually a bit of a believer in this philosophy myself, but I actually use it to find a bit of purpose. The one I'm talking about is actually nihilism. And that is a very interesting philosophy. I think it was brought about by Nietzsche, if I'm correct. But it's the idea, well, actually, Nietzsche was actually kind of the believer I am in nihilism, but nihilism in the modern day is people believing that there is no meaning to life, everything is worthless, there's no point in anything, so might as well just give up. But the way I look at it is that there is no purpose to life, there's no discernible goal for anyone. You could literally just do nothing your whole life and you'd be fine, really, for the most part. As long as you're able to pay your bills and eat and have a place to sleep and water to drink, you'll make it. But the thing is that because there's literally nothing to really do in life, it gives so much of a reason to have a purpose in life, because the bounds are truly endless. You can come up with any goal or objective you want for life, and it's an entirely possible and an entirely attainable goal from the start. And so I would have to say that the answer to what is the answer to life is really anything you want it to be. It could be completely different for anyone. For some people, it could be to be the most successful farmer there ever was. For some people, it may be to be the president of the United States. That's my own personal goal. Others, it could be to just have a great family. You know, it could be literally anything and everything. And so I would have to say that would be my answer. It's literally, life in itself is the answer to life, at least to me. Sounds really deep, but it really isn't. It's really just a stupid thing of my own opinion. But still, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I do know, Frank the Tank USN, that was a joke. Now seeing everyone said 42, which is the answer, I think, in the book. But I still thank you for the support, Frank the Tank. I hope that was a real serious answer, in my opinion. Because GW North said it's still 42. It is still 42. It is. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who helped make this thing possible, so I can completely misinterpret a joke and give a serious answer when everyone in the chat gave the joke answer. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who helped to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Jack Ray, who puts in a $27 donation, and huge shout out to Jack as well for that generous support. He says the M777 in the hole is like, let's see. Unfortunately, you see the super chat. What does this mean? I don't know who that is.
Well, let me type that in really quickly, because sadly I don't know that person either. Wait a minute. It's a gun? What? Hang on, hold up. Oh, well, what do you know? Go ahead and read it, Matthew. This is actually a really interesting historical story.
So Jack said the M777 in the hole is like Anzio Annie that hid in a tunnel and slid out to fire, and maybe call the M777 in the hole Dugout Doug, as it's on the good side, and hint MacArthur.
I like that joke, actually. That was a really good one, Jack Ray. I'm not going to lie. And actually, I do not know a lot about Anzio Annie, which is a Krupp K5. This one's actually called Leopold right here, and this one's on display, apparently, at the United States Army Ordnance Museum right now. I did not know that. That's actually really cool that one of these survived the war. But this is a German railway gun from World War II. And this thing is pretty neat because apparently one of them, called Anzio Annie, hid in, I would guess, a railway tunnel, and they would pull it out to fire, and then they move it right back in. Let's see if they have anything specific about Anzio Annie. Oh, I see. 2 German guns, Anzio Annie and Anzio Express, due to the express train-like sound the shells generated. Let's see. So, interesting. So apparently they were operated near the town of Anzio in Italy. That's where they got the Anzio name. Because I was thinking, that's kind of interesting. Why is it called Anzio? So here's Anzio right here. And I believe, if I'm correct, let me look at the map here. Is that what I'm looking for? I don't think that's it. Hang on, folks. I gotta try and get my bearings here. Okay, so there's Anzio. So, like, Allied forces landed either south or north, I think. U.S. forces had moved up through southern Italy at this point. They were fighting in some battle, and I forgot the name of the damn battle. Avanzano? No. They fought around Pompeii. Where's Pompeii? Pompeii's down here. They fought around Pompeii. They moved north through Naples. They took Naples. Landed in Anzio. They raced forward. They didn't go to Rome. I can't remember the name of the battle. Many of y'all will know the name of the battle. The Battle of Cassino. That's the name of it. There we go. There's the town. The Battle of Cassino. So apparently the German railway guns, those 2 were used down in the area. They actually escaped, and then the crews ended up destroying them a little bit later on. But this is the gun itself. And a very interesting little piece of World War II history, Jack Ray, that I personally didn't know about. So I'm learning here as we go. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that, because that M777 is a lot like that. It just kind of slid out of that little opening, fired, and then the Lancet wasn't able to destroy it. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Dugout Doug, that is a pretty interesting little fact about Douglas MacArthur, but maybe for another time when I actually read up about it and try and learn a little bit more so I can talk about it with a little bit of knowledge, because I actually don't know that nickname of MacArthur all too well. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address it the best I can, and thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running, Jack Ray, and throwing out loads of World War II history that even I didn't know, which is really, really cool. And I'll always love to learn new stuff, so thank you for sharing that with me. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And we now have one from Howard Turgell, who puts in a $25 donation, and a huge shout out to Howard for that support. He said, why do we not hear more updates and details on Ukraine, Israel, and the many other hotspots on TV news?
Good question. Good question. You don't hear a lot about Israel on this channel because there's just not really a lot for that voice crack, though. Jeez, man. Did you hear that? Goodness gracious.
I did. That was a doozy.
Put that thing in for the Guinness Book of World Records. That might have been the worst voice crack ever. But to answer your question, Howard Turgell, good question. The reason why you don't hear a lot about it on this channel is because we cover things in picture and video evidence. So if we don't have picture and video evidence, usually just doesn't get covered. So all the raising tensions currently going on in the area is just not covered because we don't have video or picture evidence for it. We try and cover it a little bit with a little news bulletin here and there, but there's only so much that we can do. And I tried to fit it in today, although we only have one bit. So I hope that does address that the best I can, Howard Turgell, and answer that a little bit more. Oh, wait. You're asking one second. I had to reread that again. Why are you not hearing about that a lot on TV news? Well, it goes back to something that I was talking about a little while ago on this stream. And I hate to say it, I really do, but I think it's something of a little, it's something I believe is a bit more of a fact these days than anything. People, and considering, Howard, that you're here in America with us, this is something that I can speak about particularly for America. People don't care at all. Like, it's a really weird thing. Most people just do not care about anything going on in the world. And the mainstream news companies are pandering to that audience because those are the kind of folks that watch TV a lot. That's kind of the audience that television has always pandered to. That's why whenever you used to be able to watch the American History Channel before it turned into the American Hitler Channel, covering anything and everything about Hitler, and then after 9 it covers ancient aliens and crap. It used to cover World War II, but it did it in a very, very surface level way. You were never going to find anything in great detail about anything on the History Channel or the Military Channel, as it used to be called. You just never would. And that's the kind of audience they pander to on mainstream TV, and mainstream news does that as well. And so a lot of people in America give not a single damn about anything going on in the world. Literally nothing. The only thing they care about is what is sensational to them. And to be quite honest, because this would be something that I would be very ignorant to not say, most people in America only care about American politics. That's it. They want to hear about the evil people on the other side that they don't like. And a lot of people are going to go, ha, it's so-and-so, because we've had that so much tonight in the chat, and I got to remind everyone that we have a no politics rule. That means we do not want to hear your political opinion. It's great you have one. Save that for the voting that's coming around in November, but that's not for this channel, and we're not going to allow this channel to be used as a platform for your own political opinions to try and push them. We remain as politically neutral as possible on this channel as we can, and we make sure to enforce that not just on ourselves, but on the channel as a whole. So that's just how it works. Got to put that out there before I even get into this. But nevertheless, a lot of people in America want to hear about how the other side is so bad and how evil they are. It doesn't matter what else is going on in the world. It doesn't matter if the largest war that has ever happened in Europe beyond World War II is unfolding before their very eyes. It does not matter. They want to hear about the bad guys on the other side of the political aisle here in America. And so the mainstream news has a bit of an option. Either they can try and hop on this cash cow that it is pretty much, because people will always watch if you're covering that kind of news, and that helps them to sell ad spaces on their channels. Or they can actually try and cover real news, and then they'll probably fall off in the ratings, because no one wants to hear about anything else in the mainstream. It's a very sad state of affairs because there's so much interesting things that happen in the world. Like, for example, I'll tell y'all something that I found really interesting way back years ago, because this has been like this for a long time in America. Back in 2019, you remember this, Matthew, when we went to Britain? We were in a hotel in York, and we turned on the BBC Channel 1 News, and it was late at night, so they moved on from real news coverage pretty much into BBC-made documentaries. And one of them was on Mongolia. I don't know if you were in the room, Matthew, when this one came on, but it was actually talking about Mongolian tensions with China because of Chinese workers moving into Mongolia and undercutting Mongolian workers, which was causing a lot of tensions not only in Mongolia on a local level, but nationally in between the nation of Mongolia and China as well.
Yeah, I think I vaguely remember that, yeah.
It was such an interesting documentary because it actually allowed us a look at a far reach of the world that is never covered in American news, and to hear about things that are affecting other countries. It has no impact on Britain or America, but it gives you an idea of what the world is shaping up like over there on the other side of the world. And it was such an interesting thing to hear. And I was just really, really invested in it. It was such an interesting story. I watched the entire documentary, and it was just wild. It was really crazy, the whole documentary. I wish I could talk about that in greater detail, but it really just serves as a vehicle for explaining something about American news. You don't hear that kind of stuff, because in America, people would say, why the hell do I care about some Mongolians getting angry at Chinese foreign workers when I could hear about the bad guys on the other side in politics and be angry all the time? And that's kind of what motivates mainstream news to be what it is. It doesn't have any kind of a semblance of news anymore. It's more like political punditism, and it's disguised as news. That's what I would say modern news has really turned into. That's why I don't like it, and that's also why I don't really get into modern politics at all, because I just don't like the way it goes. Like, you know, and a lot of people are like, well, if you don't like politics, why would you want to get into it? Because I want to change it. Like, you can dislike something and then want to change it into something that you could like. that you can do. And a lot of people find that to be a foreign concept. I'm generally someone that if I dislike something, that makes me want to do it more because I want to change it. Like how I don't really like news. I don't really like how news is covered around the world right now, especially in America. So then I just decided to step up and make my own news channel, and here we are. And a lot of y'all are really enjoying this, and we're really bringing news back around to the way it should be. This channel is pretty much in the top 100 in America every single day. It beats out some major groups like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson and Fox News and CNN and the Young Turks, all of them political in different ways, different degrees, and on different sides. And somehow I've been able to come out with the way I would want news to be made, the kind of news that I would enjoy, and it seems like a lot of people are enjoying it. That's really the same reason why I want to get into politics in the future, in 2040 or so, is for that exact same reason. But that's why you don't hear a lot about that, a lot about these topics on Israel or on Ukraine on mainstream news. It's just because they know that's not going to draw people in for them. And so they have to appeal to the masses that are watching TV, and they really only care about domestic political issues that will enrage them more so than anything that may actually matter around the rest of the world that would impact America. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for support, Howard Turgell. And I thank you for supporting this channel and helping it to keep running, because folks like you who do support this channel help us to continue to make this very special and unique kind of news, not just an idea of imagination, but a reality. It's folks like you who support this channel, Howard, that are the only people that make this thing possible. And that's why we got to thank you so much once again. We got to thank everyone so much for y'all's support, not only in Super Chats, but just in watching this channel alone, because each and every day, each and every night that y'all do that, y'all make this channel a reality. Y'all make the special way that we cover news in a non-political light, really just a pro-Western light, and that's it. Y'all make that possible. And if it wasn't for folks like y'all who supported this channel and helped to make this thing possible, we wouldn't be able to be here doing this right now, 867 days after we began. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and this super chat goes to 10K, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to 10K for that support. Sadly, we cannot read off the comment, though, because it does get very political, and we sadly do not, well, actually not sadly, to be honest with you, because it used to be sadly for me we didn't cover politics, but then I saw, wow, it really goes sideways when we cover politics anywhere close to it. So, sadly, we cannot address it. I'll still say sadly anyway, but thank you, 10K, for that support, and Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, 10K, and sadly, we cannot read that because it is a bit of a political thing. I've actually seen a lot tonight that a lot of people, some people who've been around for a while actually on the channel, are trying to push political opinions into chat. And while I completely and I will say this, I generally do not like politics the way it is now, but I understand that everyone in every single political side in America is trying to be well-intentioned and do what they believe is best for the country. Sadly, if you have your own beliefs on that, or if you want to talk about that, this isn't really the place. There are other places on the internet to talk about that kind of stuff, because I'm not at all against political conversations. I'm just against political conversations here on this channel, because this is a pro-Western channel. We're not trying to divide people, by splitting hairs about domestic political issues that don't really matter. The pro-Western sphere is greater than domestic political issues in each nation. It's a combined, a really active survival by every nation involved. So it really moves beyond the domestic political sphere, where we really don't have to talk about it. And we really can't talk about it, because then we start to divide people on unnecessary things. But still, I thank you for the support, 10K, and helping this channel to keep on running. All I can say is that, the best thing I can say on politics is, if you enjoy this channel and you enjoy a lot of the things I say, Matthew doesn't really have political ambitions of his own. He has different plans for himself, but I do have political ambitions. So if you like a lot of what's said on this channel, I can't speak for current candidates. I can't speak on the current presidential election that's going on. But if you like what I say and you think it sounds very reasonable and it sounds very logical, then you can vote for me in 2040. I'm hoping that I'll actually have a good shot of things in 2040. I'll probably be, I would be, if I was elected, by far the youngest president to ever have been elected in the history of the country. That will work against me, because while a lot of people always like to say that they would love to have a younger president, they never vote for a younger person because they believe that they're inexperienced and unknowledgeable. I'll be quite honest with you, though. what I've seen, just looking at it unbiased and across an even sphere, what I have seen over the past 20 years is that as the candidates have gotten older and older, in my opinion, they've gotten more and more unintelligent and more ignorant. And that is something I believe is not conducive for the longevity of the country. I do believe seriously that we do need younger candidates in office, because the job of the president of the United States is one of the most strenuous and stressful jobs that there ever is. And a lot of presidents make it look like it's a stroll in the park. Many of them take a massive multitude of golfing trips. They spend more time golfing than they actually do administering the nation. But if you're actually conducting the office of the president in the proper form, it is a very stressful job. Many presidents have attested to such a thing, and many of them have ended up aging rapidly while being in office. It's not an easy job, and it's not a cakewalk. And for older people to be there, people who are in their 80s at this point, I'm not saying that about one person. I'm saying that really about all options. They're almost all of them are at least 70, and some of them are in their 80s. And for people to be that old in the office, it's just not an environment conducive to that. Politics is a very brutal and vicious kind of an environment. It's one that it requires sharp mental agility. It requires a lot. And it's something that, sadly, I'll have to be quite honest, most people will not have in their 70s and 80s. I know, personally, I wouldn't be able to keep up with the ebb and flow of politics, being in a political lifestyle in my 70s and 80s. I'd have to have enough maturity and grace to have stepped out and to have nominated a successor at that point. But I think it's a very questionable state of things these days with that. So if y'all want to do anything political on this channel, well, the only thing really that's politically allowed on this channel is saying that you would vote for me for president in 2040, because sadly we can't really get into much detail beyond that, because then we do start dividing people and getting kind of caught up in the weeds, which we really don't want to do on this channel, because one thing I think we've shown on this channel is that so many people here have completely different opinions, and we see that because every once in a while y'all will say things here and there that let us know that certain people in the Lee Spring Army have a leaning one way and many people have a leaning another. And so far I've made sure that we do not talk on a political level, and I've been able to unite many of y'all under the premise that a lot of what I say whenever I talk about decisions and actions that America takes is logical. And it shows that there's a lot more common ground amongst Americans than many people would be led to believe. This channel is a living example, a testament of that sort of a thing. And that's why I believe that it's so much more important, especially for a channel like mine, and especially considering that I have political ambitions in the future, to show y'all that it doesn't take a political party man in the nation to be able to speak to y'all and speak sense. It just takes a common sense person speaking common sense, logical statements and objectives for the country that will be able to do the right thing. I think, but to be quite honest, I think that party people, not like, having party and having a few cocktails. I'm talking about political party people, especially in the modern world, are some of the most dangerous people for governance, because they box themselves in with what they can do and what possible tools are available to them as the president. We shouldn't be looking along a party line. We should be looking along the lines of what may be beneficial for the nation now in the short term and in the long term, as long-term goals and objectives, which has been sorely missed in a modern political scene. But that's really all I can say, because beyond that we start getting too much into the weeds. But I still thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running 10K. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one's going to go to LSA Rocks, who puts in a very generous $100 donation. A huge LSA Rocks for that massive support, by the way. We appreciate that very much. He's always throwing in massive support. And he said, I never miss the news. And Alan, he said, I feel bad for the kids in Ukraine, though. It's so sad, and in my opinion, so low of them to hit that building, meaning the Russians, and air defense needs to be on a priority list.
And I got to say, thank you so much for the massive support, LSA Rocks. And thank you so much for never missing the news. And thank you for throwing in massive, unbelievable support every single day for about a week and a half now. It's crazy. We cannot believe that you keep throwing in that much support, but we are entirely appreciative and entirely grateful for it, because you help us to make this channel possible and help us to keep on being able to cover the news. And so with that, I thank you greatly for that. And I would have to say, I feel terrible for the kids in Ukraine. That's why we had to cover that today. We rarely ever cover things that deal with atrocities. Like, usually every day when we get live on air, I know that there has been a bombing, say, near Sumy that's killed 2 citizens of Ukraine. And it's a terrible, sad thing. And it really is. I always take a moment to sit there and kind of think about it before we go on air. But I don't want to bring that kind of an air, that kind of a feeling to the channel, because the war goes on every day. And what's more important is that we keep our spirits high and we look at the big term objective, which is making sure that Ukraine remains an independent state, instead of looking at the short term tragedies that are always happening and then getting emotionally overburdened and then leaving everyone to their fate. Because we've been overburdened. That's something that I'm always doing behind the channel every time I make the news. But I got to thank you greatly for, enjoying the channel and enjoying the way we cover it. But still, it's horrendous how they hit that building. That's why we had to cover that today. Because while we always see atrocities going on in the background, we kind of end up filtering them out so that way we can make sure to focus on Ukraine's successes and making sure to cheer them on to victory. This atrocity that happened today was so bad we couldn't even try and do that. It was horrendous. It's something we had to cover. We were obligated to tell you all about it if you all already hadn't heard about it. And so I got to say, thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and enjoying the way that we cover this kind of news, and even sometimes having to go into the bad side of things like what happened today. But still, I would certainly agree with you, LSA Rocks. Air defense needs to be a priority. And it looks like a lot of people are starting to see that it is a priority. As we heard, I believe that Spain is going to be providing another Patriot system to Ukraine just today. That was announced. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to DS, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to DS for that support as well. He said, just because, and I love the channel daily, and the community is amazing.
Thank you so much for the support, DS. Just cause, and that is a good reason, just cause, but still, I absolutely love the channel, and I love the community. It is an incredible, amazing community. We adore it every single day. And I gotta say, huge thank yous for the support, DS, and really enjoying this channel and appreciating it, because it is folks like you who make this channel possible and make it possible for the LSA to have a home each and every day in this live chat. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Leora Avagile, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Leora, for that support. And they say, thank you, Enforcers. And the amount of anti-Semitism is disgusting online, especially with Discord and social media. Tons of misinformation on the Ukraine war. And it's insane, the amount of trolls. And also, Leora, like we addressed that a little bit earlier as well. Part of it, and I think a big chunk of it, is really the AI bot farms. That's a huge part, the information warfare part. But there's also actually real people behind some of these accounts that actually truly believe what they're saying, and they're actually full of hatred. And unfortunately, online gives them some level of anonymity, so they can feel free to basically spew their hatred with no repercussions or any type of social backlash from it, because they can use an alias and simply go on there and speak all this nasty stuff. Obviously, it's free speech, but at the same time, nobody wants to hear that crap. It's disgusting, like you said, and it's just a bunch of hatred. It's very, very unhappy people making fake accounts to go harass other people. So I agree with you 100%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree with you massively on that as well, Leora Avagile. I've seen a major amount, especially tonight at the beginning of the stream, of anti-Semitic bots. It was insane. Every single one of them had something in their name about the Talmud. And I've seen that a lot lately, and it's really starting to grow rapidly in America. And I'm not really sure who is pushing that, because I've been trying to think who in the world would be pushing this kind of a rhetoric. I don't think it would be the Chinese, because the Chinese usually don't work on that kind of a level. They usually work on the level of just saying that the American government is weak and America's in decline. If you hear anyone ever say anything like that on a public sphere, they're really playing into China's hands, to be quite honest. If you ever see anything anti-Semitic, I don't even really know where they come from. Like who would be supporting that kind of a group? Maybe Iran? Well, you know what, Matthew? I was just thinking about that. That hit me. It would be Iran, wouldn't it? Because they're the ones that are currently in a proxy war with Israel. And so if they were able to propagate anything, it would be anti-Semitic beliefs, because they know that if America became a largely anti-Semitic country, guess who would be the first one on the chopping block for support? It would be Israel, because it's a largely Jewish country.
That's true. I think all the countries are engaging in it. That goes for China, that goes for Russia, Ukraine, Israel. All of them are engaged in it, and they're all pushing their own narrative out there. And that's why these days, when you go online, and honestly, this problem is becoming more prevalent, especially in the United States, because people get on social media all the time, and when you have so much disinformation running around, people have the right to free speech, but at the same time, if you have foreign governments getting on these platforms and putting out their own narrative, and then you have another one doing the same thing, and then another one, people get so confused. They have no idea what to believe. And kind of like what I was saying earlier, they end up going and believing whatever they want to hear. And people get all warped, messed up, and then they start really digging in deep to whatever position they're in. And by that time, they're too far gone. That's why you have people saying pro-Russian like narratives, and they truly believe it. And they'll have no evidence to back up their point or anything, but they are like damned certain that they're going to stick with it, and it makes no sense. So I don't know what the solution is to that, but it's definitely out of hand.
I would agree with that. And I got to thank you so much once again for support, Leora Avagile. Of course, there's a lot of bots, a lot of trolls out there. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the next one.
And this super chat goes to Ben Ite, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Ben, for your support as well.
Hey!
He said, buy a car, brine a carp, fire. Which is it?
Well, it's not the third one. Brina Carp. Brina Carp. I like that one, man. Oh, those carp. Dude, jinx, man. Oh, those carp. But still, thank you for the support. But a pretty good one though. Everyone's come up with multiple different things for that one. But you know, if y'all could buy me a car. I saw two that I found really interesting lately, Matthew. Would you like to see one of them?
Yes, I'm kind of curious to see what you're looking at this point.
Okay, so of course you know, Matthew, it's not going to be anything normal. It's always going to be something a little weird. So, first off, one of them I was looking at was this M151 Mutt.
You said for a car?
Like, you know, it's kind of like as a fun thing, you know, like not really as like an actual like day car. Just kind
I
of
was
like
about to say, I mean, you're crazy. Like, Wild did not want to do this as a daily driver. You'd be the most crazy person in Birmingham doing that.
Like, so it would not be a daily drive, but this thing would be kind of cool. Or, you know, something else that would be really cool. Oh, buddy.
What's that?
You've never even seen anything like this before, Matthew. You ain't even gonna be ready for this. You ain't gonna be ready. You're gonna be blown away, Matthew. Blown away while I filibuster to try and find a good picture of this thing, because you've got to see it. You got to see it to know. You gots to know. So, oh, that's not a good enough picture. Oh, here we go. The M274 Mule. This thing.
Man, that looks like a stripped down chassis of like a pickup truck, but they just put like a flatbed on the back. I don't know what is that really?
This thing is a mechanical mule. Basically what it is it's a small utility vehicle that the U.S. Army and the Marine Corps used from the 60s to the 80s. That it weighs half a ton. So this thing is actually heavier than the Mutt. Like, the Mutt is a quarter-ton utility truck. This thing actually weighs twice as much as a Mutt. It could go about 30 miles per hour at a top speed. It was used by like the airborne units and stuff, like the 101st. Well, the airborne, more like air assault units, like the 101st. But it was really cool, man. It's actually a pull start. Like, you actually have to get like a pull cord, like a push mower, and yank that thing to start it. But it was incredibly cool. I've been researching and reading a lot about these because I was like, what the hell are these? And they're incredibly cool. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it's got potential if you LS swap it and add some new leaf springs to it and some other modifications. Maybe if you add a cab to it, that might also help it.
But, dude, like, if you ever seen one of these things, they are so freaking cool. But this thing is also really cool, too. Y'all can tell that I've been researching a lot about Cold War era U.S. vehicles, because both of these are Cold War era. But it would either be this one or this one. So if y'all had to buy me a car, it'd be this thing or it'd be that thing, one or the other. Also, Elmer Kilrid put in a really cool one. Have you ever heard of a Gamma Goat, Matthew?
I have not. What is that?
This
Oh
is
my
the Gamma
God.
Goat.
Who makes that?
I think this was AM General made this thing, I think, maybe. But this thing is incredibly cool. It's amphibious. It is articulated. And it can get up, I think, to like 50 miles per hour, I think, 60 miles an hour, maybe. But it was really cool, man. These things were also used by the 101st Airborne and other air assault units in the U.S. Army. Let me see if I can find you a cooler look at this thing. Here's one that was at the Rock Island auction with like the windshield and everything.
It looks like something that might belong in an airport, like maybe pushing some planes around or something.
Yeah.
The design is interesting. I just don't know, like, I guess you could haul stuff with it. It's just not my thing.
But dude, it's the Gamma Goat. Like, this is the goat. Like, no joke. Like, it's pretty cool.
I say Unimog everything. If you want a utility vehicle to haul something, push something, or crawl, like Unimog, like solves all your problems all the way.
So, really quickly though, Matthew, if someone was to buy me a car, what would it be? The Gamma Goat, or let's see, the Mutt, or the M274?
I would go with the M274 just because it's got mod potential.
Man, that would be kind of cool to trick that thing out, though, really. But you know what's crazy, man, is that you can actually get a Mutt if you can find them for like $15,000.
Wait a minute, this thing right here for $15,000?
Yeah.
That's kind of steep. I'm not gonna lie. Like how old are these things? Like 30 years old or something?
Nah, they're like 40 and 50. I mean, they're like collectors now. Like, but like that's the thing, though. They're like collectors vehicles because when I say they're only 15,000, I'm comparing that to a Willys Jeep, which is like 40 grand now, like a real Willys Jeep, like the military ones. Those things are like 40 and 50 grand now. This thing is only 15. But what's whack is that this thing right here can run anywhere in between 8 to 15. So it's pretty much the same price as a Mutt in the end.
Oh, that's I didn't know that actually. That's very interesting.
Yeah, but they're cool. I mean, like I think they're pretty neat. And let's see here. Let's see. The only reason, let's see. I'm trying to look up who designed the Gamma Goat. Let me go pull that up. Gamma Goat. All right. Who designed it? The concept for the vehicle when the French Army reported that the United States Army trucks provided them were woefully inadequate for the terrain in Vietnam. And let's see. To develop a new tactical truck for the Southeast Asia theater, as well as other projects of interest to the then looming Vietnam War. Interesting. So this was actually, let's see here. Hang on. I want to see failed construction. So who actually ended up making the thing? Let's see. The manufacturer was Condec, and the designer was Chance Vault Aircraft.
I've never heard of any of these companies.
You've never heard of Vault?
Nah, I've never heard of them.
Dude, Vault, I think, made the Corsair in World War II and a couple of other planes, and then they got involved in this massive scandal in World War II. And also, they make these cool superheroes. Like, there's a whole show about it. I'm just kidding about that side of things. But let's see. I need to find Condec. Where in the world is that? Here we go. Consolidated Diesel Electric Company. Oh, they're still around. Huh?
They do diesel?
Hang on, hold up. Let's read about these people. Let's see. Became a leading manufacturer of robotics, defense, aerospace, and industrial equipment. Hang on.
Also, by the way, we got like 26 super chats to go.
It's okay. We're learning. I'm just kidding. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to read about these people a little bit more. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. Thank you so much for the support, though, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you once again, Ben 8, for throwing in a good joke. Oh, those carp. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Richard McGurl, who puts in a $50 donation. Massive support as well, and a huge shout out to Richard for helping to keep the channel running. He said, I'd vote for you. He said, age standards need to be changed. And you, the one rare bunch of people, are the ones that need to be in charge. Old people mess that shite up, and you guys have to live with it. And I say let the young ones be in charge. And Richard, you know what? That is, like, it sounds like a good idea. But I'll be honest with you, the young people, like in our age bracket, kind of scare me a little bit, putting them in charge of stuff. I think they might need to maybe mature a little bit or something like that. I'm not trying to like hype like ourselves up or something like that. We're still young and we have a little bit of inexperience as well. But I don't know that the old people, they have messed things up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, they have messed it up. But I'm not sure if the young people really know what they're doing at this point either. So maybe between the two age groups, they can figure it out one of these days. But Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you so much for the support, Richard McGurl. And I would say age standards are not that bad as far as being 35 for president. I don't think that's that bad, really. But one thing I would say is that I don't believe that there is such a thing as being too young or too old for a job. I believe as long as someone is the best fit for the job, that is what's most important. I feel like the problem is today, though. How can I put this, Richard? How in the world can I put this? I'm gonna level with y'all and be as honest as I can with these answers. I don't know if they're gonna come back to bite me in the future. I won't care. I'll just admit that. I'll admit what I said because it's honestly truth. The thing is that with candidates these days, is I don't really see any that, in my opinion, are that suitable. I feel like the candidate pool itself is a little bit on the lower end these days. That's something that a lot of people like to say that it's not on the lower end for another side, but I generally like to look at things fairly, and I'm not really a big fan of the pool of candidates that have been going up to the top these days. I'm just not really a big fan of them. They always seem to be the worst, like truly the worst. But they're selected as the best out of a pool of candidates for each side, and then those pools of candidates were pretty damn bad off too. Like if you really look at it from a step back, it's a little bit weird that things are going on right now that you really can't avoid saying they are issues, and no one's even paying attention to them, and they're paying attention to small things like who plays golf better. Like that, like just saying something that might hit a little bit too dead on the nail there. I would say that our country is facing some decent issues, domestic issues that I feel like both sides are not addressing right now. But instead, we're going to get caught up on who plays golf better. Doesn't that seem a little bit detached? I mean, like at least to me, doesn't that seem like we have some more important things to talk about than that? Like I just feel like we do. Like I feel like it's an obvious thing that seems as though that may be the rock bottom of the voting pool, when that is rock bottom of the candidates pool, when that actually becomes a major discussion point of an upcoming election. And that's why I'm just not a big fan of being involved. And I'd rather wait for when I can step in so that way I can make sure that things seem to be on point, important things are focused on, talked about, stuff like that. That would be my personal opinion. But I'm just not that happy with how things have been going lately. That would be my personal take on things. And so I thank you so much for the support, Richard. And I would say, as far as that goes, the right person needs to be the right person for the job. It doesn't matter how old they are, how young they are, what they look like. As long as they are the most competent person, they are the most competent person. They deserve to be in that position. But lately, it just seems as though no competent people. There are plenty of competent people in this country, mind you. There are many people just like me. If you find me to be competent, there are many, many folk like me who may even have different opinions than me, but they still work them off a position of logic, and they can make these ideas work for themselves. They can make it work for the nation. But the problem is that none of these people are really stepping forward anymore. They're out there, they just don't run. And so then you end up having what I would say are somewhat questionable options that seem to be a little suspect to me. Like, not just on one side, really on all sides, if y'all see what I'm saying. But with that, I hope that does address that well. At least the best I can, Richard, in my opinions. So a lot of people, yeah, and what's funny is that whenever I talk about this stuff, people always try and tag me as something. They're like, oh, you're this or you're that. And it's always the complete opposites. And so I'm very happy about that, because I know I'm not getting well, I know that I'm not showing my hand enough that people are, pegging me dead on to something. Anyways, I'm not really dead on anything. I'll take whatever I believe will work the best, and I'll just go off of that. Because governance isn't about picking something and saying, like a Corvette is the best car. Like, it is the best. Because what if you have to carry 4 people around? Then a Corvette isn't going to work. It only has 2 seats. So then you have to find a different kind of a car. But if you're a party person, like a political party person, and one side is saying the SUV is the best fit for America, and then the other side is saying the Corvette is the best fit. But right now you have to carry around 4 people, but maybe in 10 years you only have to carry around a passenger, 1 passenger. In 10 years the Corvette will work. But right now, it's not. You'd have to have an SUV. So why in the world stick yourself to a party line, and have to stick with something through and through, even if it isn't going to work, when you could sit there and say, this is what will work for right now. These are the problems that we're facing, and these are the solutions, and work off of it that way. I feel like that would be a much better way of doing things as a president, or really as a nation. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Otter, who puts in a $20 donation, and we got a donation from the Otter. And I don't see any comment attached to it, but huge shout out to you for that $20 support. And you know what? When I mentioned the word otter, it made me think of another creature that we show quite a bit on this channel, the marmot. And I think Otter might want the marmot if he's around. We might pull him out.
Oh, really? You'd want it?
I think so. The otter wants the marmot.
Oh, hello. Oh, where does it go?
Alan!
It's the marmot. Alan. Oh, hello there.
Hello there, Governor. I'm a marmot, but I've seen an otter.
Aw, man. Everything's worse than you'd ever imagine. All hope is lost. Aw, man. By the way, everyone, thank you for the free vacation. Aw, man. But it's all lost. Hope is over. Shut the hell up.
Man, you love that you got some foreign guy coming into your country who happens to be American going to Ukraine. And the first thing he says when he gets there, the paid vacation. The first thing he says when he gets there is, oh, God, this is going bad. This is going to end horribly for you. I'd be like, get the hell out of here, man. I was like, what the hell are you doing coming over here being all negative and stuff? It's like we're fighting a war. It's like we don't want that negativity here.
Man, I'm telling you, that guy, oh, my goodness. Like, it actually gets sickening to talk about him, like, on this one, because it's like your entire thing is being a loser, pretty much, but your whole focus is on Ukraine. And then you're going to go over there, and instead of, like, even if it is a little tough, being like, hey, y'all got this. We the West has your back. America's going to have your back. We're going to help you out through and through. Instead of being like that, you're going to go, all hope is lost. You might as well just do it yourself before the Russians do it to you. Do it. Here's the pistol. It's like what kind of a mindset is that? Like, that's the stupidest kind I've ever seen. Like,
just insane. Going over to like vacation in the war zone once again.
Yeah.
And then dragging their spirits down on top of it. It's like, enjoy your beer while you're over there, I guess. But I guess the people of Ukraine are just going to be on their own when it comes to moral support.
Yeah, it's like, the guy's always talking about everyone owes him something. He never thinks about owing the Ukrainians, I don't know, a little bit of support, a little bit of, you got this, we got your back, we're going to help you out. And never thinks about that. Well, that's because I gave them the damn truck that everyone fundraised, but I'm going to take credit for it. Aw, man. So I already gave them everything, so I can say that they suck. It's like something like that, some logic like that somewhere. But anyways, it is always good to see the marmot. And I got to thank you so much for the support, Otter, and helping this channel to keep on running and allowing us to see Alan, the marmot, one good time tonight. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this super chat goes to Purple Gerbil, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to the Purple Gerbil. I said, what do you think Modi is doing in Russia? And peace or address other issues?
It is most likely addressing other issues. As India is largely removed from the Ukraine war. It doesn't really have a lot to do with it, so they probably don't care that much about peace or anything. They're probably talking about future economic dealings, because we do know that the Indians are actually switching over to dealing a lot more with American weaponry than they are with Russian weaponry, which has usually been their legacy, is buying Soviet and Russian weaponry. So it probably is something to do with future economic dealings. It may be that, I don't know. It may be that the Indians are starting to move away from them, so they're actually meeting to make sure that they exit on a good rapport other than anything. And also, we've heard that apparently India has also had an issue with Indian citizens serving in the Russian army, and I believe that recently Russia actually stated that all Indian citizens' military contracts with the Russian Federation have been absolved, and they're all actually going to be deported back to India. They say returned, but the technical term for that would be deported, because they're sending them out of Russia forcefully back to India. So I believe that may also be an extenuation of that. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from what I know. But I don't think the Indians are at all wanting to really hang out in a Russian-Chinese sphere anymore because of Chinese aggression on the northern border. And also on top of that, they're becoming a lot more friendly with America as time's going by. So it would be weird for them to reverse that and start backtracking at this point. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Purple Gerbil. And I thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we now have a super chat from none other than Duncan VR, who puts in a $12 donation, and he's got the animal noises for us. He says, "Baba moo." He said, if X wanted to get rid of bots, meow woof quack, they should have just hired Matt to make animal noises. Baba moo moo woof. The efforts they make to get conscripts is crazy. And Baba and Marmot. And Duncan, we just happened to get that Marmot out here. We just pulled him out a second ago, so I hope you were satisfied with the Marmot. And also, by the way, honestly, if they put me in charge of Twitter, I would rename it Twitter again and take away the goofy name X, and I would go back and really straighten that platform out, because I could run that platform like a top. I'm not really sure how it's being run the way it is right now, because honestly, it's running like decent, like it's functioning, but in my opinion, it's barely functioning. I'm not really really satisfied with the way Twitter's running these days, to be honest. I don't know how a website can be managed the way it's being managed, to be straight up honest. It's like, someone with that much business experience, it's like you'd think they would be able to pull a website together, of all things. If they can build a car company, how come they can't pull a website together? But maybe I'm being too harsh, maybe, but I think Twitter could use a little bit of an overhaul. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree. I think Twitter could use an overhaul, and also I think Matthew would be able to do a great job at that. But one thing that was kind of a little funny to me is that before Twitter was recently acquired, the person who was about to acquire him said, Twitter is just so mismanaged. If I got it, I'd allow free speech. And then they got it, and then they went, okay, free speech is allowed. And then someone said, hey, look, here's Elon's private jet. And then he said, hey, don't do that. And the guy said, I think I will. Banned. It's like, oh, well, there goes free speech. It's like, because it's one thing to dox people, but when you're talking about publicly available flight data, like on the trackers of aircraft, it's not really like that's a violation of someone's privacy or anything. It's just kind of tracking public information. So I was like, that's a little interesting. And then, really, to be honest, it doesn't really feel like Twitter has changed at all since the acquisition, to be entirely honest. It feels like it's about the same. One thing I will say, though, that I did like is that they finally started to put tags on state-affiliated organizations and individuals, and you actually see that they're a part of a state-affiliated organization or they're a state-affiliated individual, which I kind of like. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much for the traditional animal noises, though, Duncan VR. We always love to see it, and thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Herp Derp NV, who puts in a $10 donation and says, Orc propagandist Soliev seems to be phoning it in now and not as excited as before. And he originally sounded all fire and brimstone with his script, but now he just looks like a genocidal Wilford Brimley.
Who's Wilford Brimley?
And who is this? I don't know.
Oh,
who is it?
Wait a minute. Dude, isn't this that guy that does that laugh? You know the one I'm talking about where he goes, like,
no, that's not that guy.
Dude,
no,
he looks like him.
No, man, that's definitely not him. He's not that guy, pal. He's
Dude,
not that
I
guy.
swear he's that guy, man. He looks like him. He looks like he's got to go or whatever. Like he really does. But
Is this guy from Texas?
I don't know, but he's dead apparently.
It looks like he'd been from Texas. Like he has that Texas look.
I think it's the cowboy hats. You know, like it's really just giving it away. Is he from?
He's the pitch man for Quaker Oats.
What? Hang on. We gotta go.
Did I see that right?
Wilford Brimley, American actor, working odd jobs.
He's a Marine.
He was a Marine. Hey, look at that. He was in The Thing. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, hang on. I think I may know who that is.
Oh wait, he's the guy that said diabetes.
Are you sure?
He said he promoted diabetes education. He looks like the guy, man. I think this is the guy that said diabetes.
I be dipped, man. Let me see. See here. Dang, he was in a lot of movies.
He was in some movie called The Vang.
Yeah, The Thing, dude. It was like one of the best horror movies in my opinion. It was actually a well-made one, unlike the others. But let's see here. The Stone Boy, Thy Natural Country, Terror in the Isles, Cocoon, Jackals. Hey, we know some jackals.
Man,
Dude.
we got a whole, like, what is it, like a herd or a flock of jackals, like, hanging around on the YouTube. They need to come out here and check these jackals out, man. I've said, this hot dog man is King Jackal.
Dude, like that one guy on Twitter, what the hell is he? You know, you gonna make me angry looking at, you know, like that guy.
Oh, yeah. No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said. Oh, man. Goodness, that was so funny. Oh, man. We are Legion. You better leave us alone. Ooh, it's like, yeah, we haven't heard that a million times.
Oh, I'm quivering in my boots.
I'm shaking. I'm shivering me timbers. But beyond that, I would say maybe he does look a little bit like Wilford Brimley. I'm saying maybe, but like I'll have to look at Solovev a little bit more. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Herb Derb NV, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would say he's probably phoning it in nowadays because he probably knows that the cards are in, and he's probably lost the game. But still, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the next one.
And this super chat is going to go to Plant Lord, who puts in a $10 donation, and huge shout out to Plant Lord. They said, we see how far Ukrainian drones can go, up to 1,800 kilometers, so why does Ukraine not hit the area that we see Russia sending stockpiled tanks or factories making new equipment?
That's a good question, Plant Lord. I don't know why they aren't striking everything. Maybe... That's actually a great question, Plant Lord. I don't even think I can explain why they would be holding back if they are, so I actually believe I'll have to, for one of the rare times ever, declare ignorance on an answer to that, because I do not believe that I am equipped at the moment with the ability to actually be able to give a good, solid answer to that question. That's a really good one, though, Plant Lord. That's a great one, because I actually cannot come up with an answer to that. So you actually knocked that one out of the park. I wouldn't know why they're holding back, but... maybe one day we will find out an answer, but for now it would be beyond me as to why they would be. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Plant Lord, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a $10 donation. He says, would you do a drop on Eureka Springs, Arkansas? I need LSA to send good vibes, and that this widower is doing his best, or doing his first getaway date here soon. I need all the help I can get, so everyone wish me luck.
Gotcha. In a Eureka Springs Armalite. Let's go take a look at Eureka Springs Armalite. All right, so what we got down here? Let's take a look at the pictures. All right.
Eureka,
baby. All right, so let's see. Mud Street Store. This street doesn't look like it's made out of mud. Sue them for false advertising. What do we got here? We got growth. For some reason, this looks like a Fallout 4 town. Like, I don't know about you, Matthew, but like with the how some of the stuff grows, I'm like, oh, that's a nice house, though. I like that. That reminds me of the Big Fish house, Matthew. You know the one I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it. And then they got a nice little...
I like that. Nice waterfall.
They got a gazebo. And then they got this little place.
Man, well, I can't, like, is it like themed this way or what? Like, is it a tourist trap?
I don't know. I think we're going to have to drop down to the street, find out ourselves. All right, so let's drop down on the main street. What do we got down here?
brick.
You know what, dude? It hit me. This is the Jackson Hole of Arkansas.
Could it be? Because it has that kind of like, what is it like? What's the word? Boutique look or something like that little fancy look, like exclusive.
It kind of does. I think it may be. Let's see here. New Delhi Cafe. It's a bit boutique. Yeah, I would say that this might be the Jackson Hole of the area, in my personal opinion, because it just has that vibe. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not bad looking. I think it's actually pretty nice. It's like, I don't know. There's like, you know what, Matthew? You know what? Should I show them our original hometown? Like, like I don't think it'd hurt. Like, just to show where we came from.
Oh yeah, you could show it. It won't hurt anything.
Yeah, I don't.
As long as you don't have any old addresses inputted or anything.
Nah, I don't. So where we actually are from, because we always say we're from Birmingham, but we actually grew up, and our childhood home was in the small town of Wetumpka, Alabama, north of Montgomery. And this is what I usually consider in my mind to be like the quintessential country town. And I don't know if the Google Street View is updated, because they actually changed a lot of how the downtown looks. They ripped up the sidewalks and redid them. And they actually did show it, Matthew. So this is what our little town looked like that we grew up in. Like, we literally were here from kindergarten, actually, all the way up till we graduated high school, and then we were here for about a year, and then we moved to Birmingham. So this is
2008, actually.
Yeah, 2008 up till 2021, I think it was, right, Matthew?
Yes.
Yeah, so we were here for an incredibly long amount of time, but oh dang, dude, it really changes. So like from summer to winter, man. Like, geez, Louise, man. But anyways, this is like kind of like the main street to the bridge. You wouldn't really like go down into downtown, but let me take y'all back to the summer view. Oh no, it's not. Oh, hang on, let me go over here. Okay, so this is the summer view. So this little place over here is the Copper House Deli, and they have incredibly good sandwiches there. I love the sandwiches here. Haven't been back to Wetumpka in like 3 years, but I wish I have been. They also, this used to be an old movie theater. Now they do cheese and wine inside of there. Kind of a little bougie, I'm not gonna lie, for a country town. Like, I'm like, cheese and wine, like in Wetumpka, because I grew up here. Like, Matthew and me grew up here. Wetumpka ain't the cheese and wine kind of a town, you know what I mean? No. It's more like the Newports and vodka kind of a town, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really, it's like, refined like that. But anyways,
Newports and Jack, man, not vodka. Who's smoking a Newport with some vodka? Man, I don't even know who would be doing that.
Man, I know someone who'd be doing that. The towing guy. You know what I mean? The cable guy down the way. You know the one I'm talking about. It's the one I got the SKS from, I think.
Oh, maybe so, maybe.
But that's the big.
Yeah.
The Big Fish house right over there.
The Big Fish.
So
there was never a big fish there, but it was a good movie.
So if y'all are wondering why is that called the Big Fish house, that's because there was a movie called Big Fish. I think it was made in 2003, and pretty much most of the town shots made in the movie were made here in Wetumpka. So that was kind of like the town's claim to fame before the HGTV people came and remade the town, and they like did nothing to it really, because I lived there during the whole show, and like they like made one park, and it was a really, really small one, and that was it. And then we really didn't see any changes or improvements to the town. Not gonna lie, kind of a letdown. But before that, this was our claim to fame, and the Big Fish house was the house. Like, it was like, that's the Big Fish house. So that's what it's called. And it reminded me a lot of that house that we saw in Eureka Springs in the pictures. But there's a lot of cool stuff here. Like, I'm gonna recommend this place for y'all to go to if you're in Alabama and you've never been here. Really cool, really neat to see. Let me see if I can take y'all down this street. So this is really cool. You have like the little First National Bank thing. They have a little clock right there. Then they have this street. There's a gym down there. And there's also this really famous restaurant in the town, like at least for the local people. But let me see here, Matthew. I'm trying to find, and you know what I'm trying to find, the Coosa Cleaver. This was the best restaurant in the town, right here in this building. It was,
man, I love that meatloaf sandwich. Oh. Man, they had some good food here. This was like a huge upgrade for Wetumpka, because before this place moved in, your options were pretty much limited to going to, I think it was like fast food restaurants or something like Taco Bell and things like that. This moved in, and the whole like world changed in Wetumpka, because everybody knew, like, go there for good food. Some of the best food around, actually, better than any place I've tried in Birmingham, actually.
Let me try and show y'all, this is for Christmas, by the way. Let me try and show y'all some of their food. So, That's that shrimp and macaroni thing that they had that was really good. And then they have loaded fries. They have these fried pickles. Those were pretty good. But I'm trying to find their meatloaf burger. There's that shrimp macaroni thing, I think, again, which was really good. And if I remember the story right, these guys actually, well, the guy who owns the store, he's actually a Michelin star chef, if I'm correct, Matthew, if I'm remembering the story right, who moved back to Alabama and opened up a restaurant in Montgomery, and then he opened up this one in Wetumpka. And the food really does show. Oh, wait a minute, was that it? No, that's not it. That's not the meatloaf burger. There's got to be a picture of the meatloaf burger somewhere on here. Like, come on, like, the meatloaf burger, it can't be that hard to find. They have, like, every burger but the meatloaf burger. Were we, like, the only people eating the meatloaf burger? Like, really? Like,
Probably so.
dude, like, no one has a picture of the meatloaf burger. Like, what the hell? They were so good, though. Like, y'all have to have them if y'all ever are around here in Wetumpka, but man, I'm telling you what, that sucks. Like, I cannot find the freaking meatloaf. By the way, these are fried green tomatoes, not to get, like, too sidetracked. Fried green tomatoes, they were delicious. Like, with Alabama white sauce, you would die for them. Really, they were great. But I'll be damned, I can't find a picture. That's not it. I can't find a picture of this thing. But also, by the way, the inside of the restaurant's really cool, too. That's what the inside looks like. It's kind of unassuming from the outside, really cool from the inside. And then they also have a second floor, and at night, I'll drop y'all back down on the street to show y'all this. At night, they'll open up this, like, top, like, sliding window thing, and they'll let in the natural air. It's really nice up there. But let's see here. And then down here, you got this little sitting area. They've actually really, like, vamped this thing up since we left, dude. Because remember, it was like a blue wall with nothing over there. And now they've, like, painted, like, little portraits of, like, famous people from around Wetumpka.
Yeah, I think so.
And let's see. And then they have this over here. Man, you know. Man, it's... Anyways, what do they have around the corner? Because that, like, this is from August of 2023. So this is a really... Ooh.
Also, by the way, we've got 20 super chats left.
You know, you got a good point. By the way, that's what the town looked like in 2016. So that's what it used to look like. And that's what it looks like now. Big difference,
Big
right?
change.
Like, big change. It was a positive change. No lie. But anyways, sadly, I cannot show y'all any more of Wetumpka. But hey, Eureka Springs doesn't look bad. It reminds me a little bit of Wetumpka. But that's what I think of when I think of, like, quintessential country town. It is Wetumpka, because that's where I'm from. That's where both of us are from. And I gotta say, really, to be honest, I still have a soft spot for Wetumpka. It was actually a really nice town, like, for a country town. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Davo LBC, who puts in a $10 donation and says, "Sup, goats," and thank you, Davo, for that support and the kind words.
And what's up, goats? And I thank you so much for the support, Davo LBC. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for the kind words as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a $10 super chat from Kid Rock 966, who says, "Chipping in to the coffee fund."
And thank you so much for the support, Kid Rock 966. And thank you for chipping in to the coffee fund. It helps us to keep caffeinated and helps us to keep going on air. And so, with that, while for some reason I just have a hiccup for no reason at all.
Hey, man, you almost died over there.
Man, dude, call an ambulance, but not for me. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well, Kid Rock 966. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this super chat goes to Chris, who puts in a 10 and says, "In regards to the children's hospital, my grandmother would always say, all evil needs to win is for good men to do nothing." And he says, "I pray NATO does the right thing here and stands against Putin's tyranny."
And I thank you so much for the support, Chris, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would have to say that I'd agree with that. I pray that NATO does the right thing and makes sure to give Ukraine the ability to do what they must to respond to this attack, but you never know if they will. It's a bit of a questionable time these days with that kind of stuff. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Ben Ite, who puts in a $10 donation, and huge shout out to Ben as well.
Hey!
He said, "Do you guys think that Volodymyr Zelenskyy has met with, whoa, Ben, this one gets a little bit political. But he wants to know, basically, has Zelenskyy met with someone from the past a ghost from Christmas past, as he met with him potentially to discuss the future of U.S. and Ukraine relations.
Sadly, I wouldn't really be able to speak on that at all because any answer on that would probably end up getting very politicized very quickly because there's no really good way to talk about that without talking about modern political flows. And so with that, I hope that sadly addresses that the best I can, although it's a really limited answer. But still, thank you once again for support, Ben, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And a huge shout out to Shaky Moo Moo, who puts in a $10 donation and says, "Bot be gone."
Hey, let's get it, baby! And thank you so much for the support, Shaky Boo Boo. And thank you for the bot be gone support because we be getting rid of them bots, dagnabbit, every night. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. Thank you very much. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to MMM Vlogger, who puts in a $10 donation and says, "I got a Bot Be Gone shirt in green, and let's go." He said, "I had to get one before it wasn't available, and LSA tactical gloves would be cool. Just a peanut gallery idea, and take a question from the chat."
And that ain't no peanut gallery idea. That would be kind of cool. I don't know how many people would want tactical gloves. That's kind of the problem, is that with the merch things, considering that they really only are possible because of large volumes of orders, we have to kind of consider what would a lot of people want. So I'm not really sure how many people would want tactical gloves, but if we could get a lot of people who want them, we could possibly make that happen. That would be a really cool idea. But still, I got to thank you so much once again for the support, MMM Vlogger, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much once again for just being a real one. And thank you for getting a Bot Be Gone shirt in green. I think that's one of my favorite colors that the shirt comes in. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Judy, who says, "Do you think that Poland will send in ground troops to Ukraine to help them fight?"
I'm not sure about that right now. Maybe later on down the road, towards the end of this year, they may. But for now, I'm doubting that a little bit. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring the live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Davo LBC once again, who this time puts in a $10 donation and says, "LSA Private Davo reporting to Dookie, sirs."
I like that, man. You're reporting the Dookie. That's pretty good. I gotta appreciate that. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Davo LBC. And hey, we're running an army here. But still, thank you once again. I'm just playing with you. But I appreciate it. That was a pretty funny one. Like that's a really goofy one, but I appreciate it because it's goofy and it's funny for that reason. But still, thank you so much once again. I really like that. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, huge shout out to BK for putting in a $10 donation and no comment attached to it. But BK, thank you very much for helping to keep the channel running, and we appreciate that support. We also have a $10 super chat from Playa Soul.
Playa
Puts in a 10. Playa. He says, "Hey guys, I've been listening since almost the beginning, and I really appreciate the show." And thank you. They said, "Thoughts. I just have to say, I like the little bit of chaos once in a while when the stream does a hiccup." Do you really? Do you really like that chaos? I honestly hate the chaos. When that stuff starts happening, I really have to bite my tongue not to start sounding irritated because I try to hide it the best I can. But when that starts happening in Discord and I hear the enforcer, like, he'll say, like, "I believe we should go," and it goes silent for like 10 seconds. And then I hear him, like, come back on. He says, "What do you think, Enforcer?" Or Enforcer Matt? I'll be like, what? I'll be like, "You're kidding me. Discord just cut out the entire thing." And it kills me, I'll tell you what. But I'm glad we worked through them. And also, I'm glad that you actually like the chaos. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh, I hate it. Matthew and me are pretty much on the verge of just starting to just throw out strings of cuss words at that point when that starts happening. Because like you know, like with Matthew, I'm sure it's the same with Matthew as it is with me. It takes a lot of mental concentration to actually do this. It sounds like it's very effortless and easy for us, but I'm actually usually pretty strung out and stressed out while I'm doing this because I have to try and keep myself in a specific mindset and be able to keep things lined up correctly in my mind to be able to get to them one after the other, because there is no script. Many of y'all will know that if y'all been around long enough, and a lot of y'all have been, but there is no script to this show. Everything that y'all are hearing, I'm having to come up with as I'm saying it live. So, you know, there is no, like, you know, like point A, point B, point C, and then little bullet points for them. It's just I have to know everything and I have to talk about it. And so
it's easy to start sounding like, "Whoa, Jack, whoa, 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 whoa." Anyways.
What the hell's going on, Jay? We almost turned into that one guy, Matthew, who goes, "We'll do it live." Like, we're almost like that guy sometimes, but still,
I'm not gonna lie. It's easy to start babbling. Like, I don't know about you, but like sometimes, like when I get really caught up, like with trying to answer chats, get bots out of here, put live chat questions in a spreadsheet, create polls, and check other things as well at the same time. I start like trying to talk, and sometimes it feels like I'm just babbling, like just endlessly babbling. I'll be like, damn. Like, I can't pull a thought together to save my life right now. I feel like the fellow that babbles a lot, if you know who I mean. But it's easy to sound like that. You really do have to focus, and you realize it once in a while.
Yeah, sometimes I end up having to do that, but usually when I do that, Matthew, it's because I'm having to segue to a poll. Like, you'll text me, you'll be like, poll, and I'll be like, okay, it is time to get onto that poll. It's a good time. So then I have to figure out how to make the news directly correlate to the poll, or figure out how to throw it in. So then I feel like I'm rambling because I'm trying to figure out a way to make that smooth and seamless, and then it kind of sounds like rambling a little bit. I don't know if y'all ever pick up on that, but usually I'm a fish out of water when it comes to trying to transition into a poll. Like, I've never really been able to get that down yet. But still, it does happen. And I got to thank you so much for the support, Darren. Play a soul, play ya. And I got to say, thank you so much for enjoying the hiccups, and thank you for really appreciating the channel as well and supporting it to help it to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wellness LSA Latvia, who puts in a €20 donation. And Wellness, thank you very much for that support as always. He said, "Hello, enforcers and the LSA, and I'm so angry after recent attacks on the hospital, and I feel like I need to arm up and go to Russia."
And I thank you for the support, Wilderness LSA Latvia. And I think a lot of people are really outraged about what happened there at that children's hospital. But it's something that hopefully the Russian government and the Russian army will pay for by the end of the war. But who knows? But I'm sure a lot of people are probably feeling like you, and maybe some people are volunteering to go to Ukraine and fight the Russians here very soon. But still, thank you for the support. I completely understand those sentiments, though. It is incredibly infuriating and angering for sure. And thank you once again for being the LSA member from Latvia. And thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Darren Quinn, who puts in a 10 and says, "For Wile E. Coyote road running, 4-wheel drive quad bike."
I don't know what that means, but I'm behind it. Like, I don't know what
all the stuff that Wile E. Coyote usually rode blew up on him, so I don't want that.
Man, I sat there and heard that. I was like, I don't know what that means, but I'm behind it 100%. I was like, I like the sound of it. But still, thank you so much for your support, Darren Quinn. I appreciate that. I really do. Wile E. Coyote on a 4-wheel quad bike. I like that. But still, with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support.
All right, and this one goes to Junebug72, who puts in a 10 and says, "Good evening, and I miss you too, and my LSA family. And also, it's good to have you back, Junebug72. He said, I'm watching here and there and checking your Twitter daily." Oh, and peep the Twitter for sure.
Yeah.
They said, "Anywho, will you take a live chat, please? Thank you, and take care to everyone."
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Junebug72. We're great to see you. We're happy to see you. Welcome back. And also, we missed you too. We've been wondering where you've been. And the whole LSA family's been wondering where the hell you been. And you're back. Welcome back. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here running this channel. And it's great to see you. And it's good to know that you're checking the Twitter. Because we put a lot out there on the Twitter. We really do. And so with that, we will make sure to get a live chat. But thank you so much once again for being here with us tonight and supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And the live chat goes to Leonardo Willie. He says, "Is the hospital strike gaining any international condemnation, or is it just war?" And you know what, Leonardo? The U.S. has condemned it so much that they said, "Ukraine, we know you requested to hit those Russian air bases so that way you can prevent those Russian planes from bombing your country. But best wishes to you, thoughts and prayers." But no, that's what they said. They condemned it very harshly. But Enforcer, what say you?
Dude, they sat there and went, "What's up, defenders? America here. No help." Like, that's what the American
Seriously,
government
no help.
Dude, they said, "No hope." Dude, they literally pulled a whole, let's see here, hot dog, man. They just said, "Oh, man, it's all over for you. Good luck." Like, they just screw you. Do what you need. But I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, because, yes, there has been a lot of international condemnation, but beyond that, not really much more than that. But with that, I hope that does address it well. I don't know if y'all can tell, but my voice sounds shot right now. Like, it's like cracking and everything a lot. My voice is getting strained and worn out as this keeps on going, and I don't know what to do about it anymore, because it even seems like when I rest it now, it doesn't really fix itself. Some people are gonna be like, go to the doctor. No, I'll die before I go to a doctor. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And our next one here goes to Cubes for Squares, who puts in a 10 and says, what do you think will happen when Israel goes for Hezbollah? And is Iran's new president a hardliner? Because I haven't checked it out yet.
Iran's new president, I actually don't know if he's a hardliner either. Cubes for Squares, I actually don't know. So I'll have to look into that a little bit more myself and declare ignorance on that for right now. But when Israel...
He got installed. That says a lot.
Well, he did get installed. He got installed like one of those new flat screen HD TVs. But beyond that, I don't really know a lot about the guy. So I'll have to research him a little bit more. But as far as Israel going for Hezbollah, I have a feeling that there will be an Iranian response of some form. I just don't know how severe it'll be at the moment, because I don't know the position of the new president, and I also don't know a lot more about the Ayatollah's position or the rest of the Iranian government and military's position on this, for that matter. It may be another mass drone and missile strike. Or it may be that they actually try and end up physically supporting Hezbollah somehow, although that would be really tough to do. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Teslans, who puts in a 10 and says, Sweet Home, Alabama.
Sweet Home, Alabama.
You know, whenever I hear somebody say Sweet Home Alabama that's not from Alabama, I always think back to that moment we were in Britain, and that British guy, when I was asking him a question, I said, do you accept a Visa card? Because we were like parking in a parking lot and you had to pay. And he said, oh, well, yes, we do accept Visa card. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. And then he said, even your American ones. I was like, what? I was like, what did he just say? I was like, even the American ones.
Man, I remember we were on a bus. Like, whenever I think about Sweet Home Alabama, I remember we were on a bus. Like, dude, I actually had so many positive experiences of British people. Because just for y'all to know, when we went on the trip, me and my mom kind of went off on our own, and then Matthew and my dad kind of went off and kind of did somewhat separate things at separate times. So we sometimes we had completely different experiences. So when when my mom and me would go somewhere in Britain, like we would go like get ice cream or something, and then the British people there would be like, oh, you're Americans, you must be from Alabama with that accent. And we'd be like, oh, cool, wow, how did you guess that? And they'd be like, oh, it's a southern accent. I don't know how they picked that up on me, because a lot of y'all say I don't have a southern accent. But then, like, you know, another time we were on a bus, and it was like one of those tour buses, you know what I mean, in London. And the guy there, you know, we were like, oh, you know, like, so tell us a little bit about this. You know, like, it was a specific pub that was from, like, the 13th century. And he said, oh, you must be from Alabama with a banjo on your knee. And he said it in, like, a really friendly way. And we're like, hey, he knows the song. And so then Matthew got the experience at Blenheim Palace of, why, yes, even accept visas, even the American ones. Which was kind of funny, because what was ironic about that is when he was saying that the British Visa credit card and debit card system had completely gone down literally like the day before that. So it's like, well, I sure hope so, because the British ones aren't even working. Like, it's like right now, at least, they aren't even an option. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much for the support, helping this channel to keep on running, Teslans. And I gotta say, I'm glad that you like Sweet Home Alabama. I personally really love Alabama, but it's got its flaws, and it's got its nice things, it's got its flaws, it's got its pluses, minuses, and everywhere. And I accept that. I accept that as a reality. But still, with that, thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Enforce, you remember that meme I showed you the other day? It was like Hell's Kitchen, Gordon Ramsay, and they have like that European like maitre d' or whatever that was like in the dining room, and he was fighting with one of the chef contestants, and he was like, and Gordon Ramsay was like, what's the problem? What's going on here? And he said, I have a problem with him because he's from Texas. Yeah. And the guy was like from Texas or something, like the chef contestant, and was like, just looked puzzled, and like even Gordon Ramsay walked off laughing. My point of that like long story right there was, we need to go check out Texas, man, because Andy Elfman told us that Texas is the greener land. Don't you love that segue? Texas is the greener land. We need to check it out because we could put a enforcer headquarters right there in Texas.
Listen, I'm not I'm not going to Texas, all right? It's not a bad place. I got nothing against Texans. Texas is a wonderful state like every other. But we're Alabamians, Matthew. We know Alabama. Alabama's where we're from. We're going to live and die here. That's just the rule.
I don't know, man. I might have to head out, you know what I mean?
You ain't going nowhere. You ain't leaving. You're stuck here like me. Or you could move to that goofy town that our mom keeps talking about out here somewhere in Madison or whatever.
Oh, no. I'm afraid I won't be ever moving to Mississippi.
Where the hell is Madison, Mississippi? You know, man, we got to look at the options here. We got to look at the options here. What do we got here? All right, we got fire pits. A lot of fire pits in this town. All right, we got some kind of a ramp or something. You know, man, I'm not gonna lie. What the hell does Mama like about this place? Because I'll be honest with you, it just kind of looks like here.
It's just one of those places where the grass is supposedly greener. I will say their stuff looks newer, though. Like I saw they have an IMAX theater. Typically, they don't have that in just random places, so that's kind of interesting. But you'd have to drag me to Mississippi. You'd have to drag me over my dead body to Mississippi before I ever moved there. Nothing against Mississippians, by the way. Like I know good people from Mississippi, but the state itself is, in my opinion, a little bit like a rung down from Alabama. And I just don't care for Mississippi. The state itself is kind of depressing to me for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Hear me out, Matthew. Okay. Here's Madison, all right? I've been told this is an hour north of Jackson, okay? So we got Jackson, a.k.a. the Fallujah, Mississippi, right here. And then Madison is just a 30-minute, maybe 20-minute drive. I don't know if I'd be a big fan of that, because that generally seems kind of like it would be a Montgomery-like situation, you know, like a war zone, and then you're right outside of the war zone. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of. Like, I just don't see it. Like, honestly, like, I'll ask people in the chat instead of me just saying what I think. Do y'all think Mississippi has good places in it? Because I just don't see the good places in Mississippi. Like, I've been a lot of places there. And in fact, a lot of our family actually lived in Mississippi. I've never seen anywhere in there. I'm like, oh, I would love to move here. I'm just always like, I would like to, like, leave here, actually. I just want to leave.
Yeah, I just don't know. Mississippi just doesn't do it for me. I'm so sorry if you know, y'all are from Mississippi or fans of Mississippi or you like the state. I just don't know. Mississippi has just never really done it for me. A lot of our family, just to put this out there, a lot of our family lived in Mississippi, really everywhere from Biloxi up to Meridian, everywhere in between. But even then, having a lot of experience with the city, with Mississippi and everything, I've just never been a big fan of the state. I've always liked Alabama a lot more. And then as a kid, I actually really loved Florida. Because, you know, you have like all of your beach experiences down in Florida. And then as I grew up, I started to learn a lot more about Florida. And then I kind of became disenchanted with the idea of Florida and generally became someone who liked Alabama a lot more than Florida. And then Georgia, I like Alabama a lot more than Georgia. So, you know, you got that as well. And then we drove up into Tennessee. And then one time we actually... I'm not even going to go through that story, but nevertheless, I ended up not really liking Tennessee that much anymore, and really liked Alabama better. So I really like Alabama compared to all of the options, and then Louisiana. Goodness gracious, God bless the people who live out there because it's Cancer Alley. Everyone knows that because of the oil companies out there. But they make money. It's just that, you know, you won't live that long to spend the money. But anyways. With that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I see a lot of people saying that Jackson is a hellhole. A lot of people are very vocal about that. Dude, a lot of people I don't see a positive thing at all about Mississippi or Jackson.
Although you won't hear a positive thing about Alabama either. Like Mississippi and Alabama, those are probably the two most dogged on states in the country when it comes to like positive views of the states.
Well, you know what? Let's just ask the chat. I don't know if we ever heard that. Do y'all like Alabama, or do y'all think Alabama is a nice place? Like, just let me know that. I'd be very interested to see if y'all have a similar opinion on Alabama. No judgment if y'all do, because it's y'all's opinion, you know, and I'm interested in knowing it, but I'd be very interested in seeing if y'all like Alabama at all either. But with that, we still have multiple questions to go. We are starting to run overtime, but I'll be very interested to see y'all's answers on that. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Robert Johnson and also Marc-Andre Burnett, and they each put in a $5 support with no comment attached. But huge shout out to Robert and also Marc-Andre as well for helping to keep the channel running. And we also have a 5 from LSA Sergeant Figment, who said, Enforcer releases new Bot Begone merch, and suddenly thousands of Russian bots disappear, and someone high up in the government got their shirt a little bit early, lol.
That's it. And I gotta say, maybe so. Maybe they did get the shirt a little bit early. And also, thank you so much for the support. And also, it is a coincidence that happened. You know what I mean? Like, we put out a Bot Be Gone. You know, that really is weird, man. We put out the Bot Be Gone shirt, and then the Department of Justice seizes and destroys 1,000 bot accounts. Like, it's like, that's a little bit weird, coincidentally. You know, it's like, I wonder. All right, but with that, we were wondering, and with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. LC
Hello?
Figment. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Can you hear?
Man, your audio is grinding out.
Grinding out? Hell no. But anyway.
Hell no. To the no.
Thank you so much once again for the support, LSA Sergeant Pigman. I hope that does address that well. And hang on, I gotta see the Alabama's all right. As we get political. Not nice, but not as bad as Mississippi. Nope, no offense. I think South Park referred to Alabama as the seventh layer of hell. It is that hot. I would say it is that hot. Only been to Mobile. I have a feeling you don't like the state then. But let's see. Can't imagine why I'd visit Alabama. That's kind of fair. No for Alabama. Never heard much about Alabama. That's popular. A good thing. Let's see here. No opposition to Alabama, but I lived in Northwest Florida. PC. So, Lower Alabama. If you know, you know. I think we do. Let's see here.
Also, Ravenlord said, I've delivered to Alabama a few times and much rather go there than anywhere in Mississippi. That's true. I mean, I will say this, like, Alabama is actually maybe a couple steps above Mississippi, actually. Because once you cross the Alabama border and go into Mississippi, all of a sudden the interstates turn to crap. Like, they're basically run down to the dirt. And you immediately know you cross into Mississippi because the roads get terrible. And also the roads around Jackson, we drove through there not too long ago, and they were just crumbling apart. Like, you would hit a pothole and your car would go swerving off to the side of the road. It was that bad. So the roads in Mississippi are horrific, way worse than Alabama.
So let's see here. What else do we have? Let's see. Hang on. Never been a lot of stereotypes surrounding family relations. That's unwarranted, really. Not to get seriously into that, but actually the whole family relations thing, there's actually a higher percentage of that by far in these 3 states. These are actually the 3 highest states in the country, I believe, according to the stats. New York State, Washington State, and Oregon State. Those are the top 3 in the country. Alabama is actually a bit low. I think the stereotype was so bad that people actually got out of it because they didn't want to lead into the stereotype. Because I think at the time it actually was pretty common down here, but not anymore. At least
man, they finally beat the accusations.
Man, they beat the charges. But let's see. Yes, Alabama, Huntsville, especially Redstone Arsenal. I've heard that place has actually changed a lot, but Mississippi not so much. Hattiesburg was kind of nice for a visit once. Don't know anything about Alabama, it's just they have a good college football team. That we do have, because the whole state's into that. We live and breathe the football thing. I've been to Alabama several times. I got family in Birmingham. I like it. I'm from Tennessee, so I'm unsubscribing. No, no, don't do it. Mississippi is the worst nation in the stats. No, West Virginia is the worst state in the stats by every measure. I hated that for West Virginia because after the coal, because it was a monolithic economy. So once the coal industry kind of died out due to laws changing in America, it kind of destroyed West Virginia. But I think West Virginia has beaten Mississippi in being the worst state in the country by the stats at this point. Let's see.
Man, we got more super chats, by the way.
Dang, man, I hate it because I'm really interested in seeing what everyone had to say. But it was very interesting.
And there goes that grinding audio again.
Man, that grinding audio. But what do we got, Matthew? What do we got? What do we got?
All right, so this one goes to Steve's Gardening Adventures, who puts in a 5 and says, I'm sorry it's so little. And don't worry about it, Steve.
Hey,
any amount helps. Thank you very much. He said, well, I'm giving the best I can. And have we heard anything about the F-16s and when they will get to Ukraine?
We haven't heard a lot about them recently, but we have heard that they're going to be arriving in late August or September. But we don't know if that's guaranteed. That's just what they're saying right now. It could even be pushed farther back than that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jason Carpenter, puts in a 5. He says, Russia's deplorable acts are acts of desperation, and they can't win, so they terrorize the Ukrainian citizens, and it's sickening.
And I would agree with that, and it is really sickening, and hopefully one day the Russians will be held accountable and pay for those crimes someday. Hopefully, the Russian government and the Russian army officers who conducted these attacks will be. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Jason Carpenter. I hope that does address that well. And also, Matthew, Steven Gerrard put in the cruelest comment about Mississippi I've ever seen. I'd rather be back in Baghdad than in Mississippi. Damn! Like,
that's
oh my
brutal.
goodness. Yeah, that is rough right there. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a $5 donation. He says, I wonder how much my signed LSA flag will be worth when the enforcer becomes president, and what job will Enforcer Matt have in the White House cabinet? And good job tonight.
And thank you so much. And thank you for saying it was a good job. And also, your LSA flag would probably be worth a good bid because that would have been so early on. And there were so few of them. There's only, I don't know the exact number anymore. I think there's like 500 something of them out there at least. But there's not a lot of them, really, when you think about it. So they probably would be worth a good bit if the signature is still there. Because I've heard that for some people, they put them out in the rain, and somehow, even with a signature being painted on with a gold paint Sharpie, it has ended up fading away a little bit. I hate to hear that. But beyond that, they should be worth a good bit. Also, sadly, Matthew wouldn't be able to be put in the cabinet because that would be nepotism. And I do not want to do anything that would be illegal. Even if the president is immune for official acts these days, I still wouldn't want to do anything that would be questionable in regards to the law. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And but one thing that Matthew could be, if he wanted to be anything, he could be the VP, because that's not an appointed position. He would just be running with me on the ballot. Honestly, not that bad. I mean, you know, that's a pretty stacked deck right there. You got the brother and you got the brother running as the president and vice president. That's pretty set, because if I die, Matthew's going to come in and he's going to be right there, like I was, like right on top of things, which would be pretty nice.
Wait a minute, say it again. Well, how's that work?
You know, like, it's not nepotism if you're on the ballot with me for VP.
Oh, no, I was talking about the part about if something happened, like I become the president.
Yeah, if I die, you become the president. So, you know, go ahead and hire the hitman, Matthew. Hurry it up. Like, get him. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that.
Oh, God, this lag is killing me.
It's killing me, Matthew. Oh, but anyways, I'm just playing, and my voice is connected just fine. I don't know what the hell's doing that, Matthew. Do you? I don't. But anyways,
I can't even get back into YouTube to see the chat because it won't. The YouTube website will not load for some reason. I don't even know what's going on.
That sounds like a you problem with your computer.
It could be. It was you last time. Now it's me. It seems like our computers are trash.
But anyways, with that, let's just hurry it up, Matthew. Let's get to the end. We're on to the next one. Thank you once again, Wyatt Logan. Thank you.
All right, so this one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2 and says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
Hey, hit that like button. And thank you, LSA Sergeant Figment, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who do it every single day, and we thank you massively for that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Barry King, who also puts in a 2. And Barry does not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Barry, for that $2 support and helping to keep us running. And we also have a 2 from Jaya Turner, who says, it's not much, but I'm moving soon 2,000 miles, Montana to Virginia.
Dang, that is a long trip right there. From Montana to Virginia. Pretty much from the West Coast to the East Coast. That's got to be one hell of a trip right there. I hope you have the best of luck. But any support is better than no support. And we thank you greatly, Jai Turner, because even if you think that's small, that is a big way in helping this channel to keep on running, and we are massively appreciative of that. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the live chat questions. But due to time constraints, because the stream has gone on so long tonight for 3 hours and 42 minutes as of this point, we'll be addressing the Morse code decoders, 3 live chat questions, and then we'll be rounding her out for the night. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the Morse code tonight was solved by the entire gang. The entire gang showed up tonight and figured it out. They said, it's Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Benu, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said, the Morse says, Russia conducting atrocities and trying to justify them sounds like a normal day in the war, but Ukraine will be avenged in LLT, LSA, Slav Ukraine.
And that's the sound of money, and y'all got the dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate y'all for getting that right, because it is certainly true, and Ukraine will be avenged hopefully sooner rather than later. And so with that, thank y'all once again for deciphering that Morse code message. And we are now on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, do you think the NATO summit will result in F-16s finally getting to Ukraine? AF Kaplan, good news. I heard some rumors running around that the F-16s might actually get delivered maybe in the next week. Don't count on that, though. That's unconfirmed. I heard that as a rumor. I'm not trying to report that as fact, like some other YouTube channels would love to do. We don't know that as a fact, but that is a rumor. But Enforcer, what say you?
I actually heard, Matthew, that the Ukrainian Special Forces stole a NATO train filled with 500
not the train.
F-16s. Like, that's a 500 F-16s, Matthew. And they took...
I mean, gotta say that they were on horseback, they had revolvers, and they were trying to take the train and, head back to, like, what is it, Wyatt Earp's house with it?
No, man. They hopped on board the locomotive, and they said, stop the train! And then they pulled, like, that giant brake lever, and then it went grinding to a stop, and they said, give me your jets or give me your laugh! And then they took the train and drove it into Ukraine. I heard that it happened. I swear. Like I promise y'all. And what was even crazier is that they literally got on top of the train. They, like, put, like, a bridle on and everything. And they like, sat down on top of the train. They smacked the bridle, and they went, yeah! And then the train hopped off of the tracks and literally just beelined its way straight into Ukraine. Not kidding. But beyond that, in all seriousness, AF Kaplan, I have not heard a lot yet. I don't believe the NATO summit will result in F-16s arriving in Ukraine sooner. I believe they're still working on the timetable we've currently heard, which is late August or in September at some point. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Mad Machine, who says, would it be more effective to attack vodka distillers than the oil refineries?
Dude, laugh like that one guy. You know who I'm talking about. I wish I could.
You talking about Mo?
No. Hang on. Let's see. Old and weird laugh. Hang on.
Oh, you're talking about that guy. He'll like pull like a cheesy prank and then he'll go.
No. Here we go. I got it. That one. Like
that sounds like a Russian car alarm going off.
Dude, that guy went. It's like, what the hell is that? Anyways, moving on from that, I would have to say it may be more effective, maybe, but we can only guess. And so with that, I hope that this addressed that the best I can, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Chris. He said, are you at all concerned that as Russia weakens, China might look to invade Russia to seize the oil fields?
No, not at all. China is actually a very deliberate country in what they do as far as invading land. They really only want to reclaim stuff that the People's Republic of China believes was a part of China at a time. And interestingly enough, while during the Great Qing, a decent amount of southeastern Russia was a part of the Great Qing, it actually was not considered by the People's Republic of China at any point in its history to be a part of their actual domain or their land. So they actually do not have any existing claims on Russia anywhere. So I don't believe that they would be invading ever, because they don't view any part of Russia to be a part of their territorial claims, except for some very small islands along the Amur River, which is something that they won't really act upon incredibly soon, because it's not that big of a deal for either side who controls them or who doesn't, because they're pretty much useless islands in the middle of the river. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, it is time for us to round out tonight's stream. I've got to say that it was an amazing stream tonight. We are entirely honored and appreciative that we were able to cover this news for each and every single one of y'all. Tonight at the peak, we reached almost 8,000 people here, and 66,000 people have watched this stream since it started. We are, of course, entirely honored and entirely grateful to be able to cover the news for each and every one of y'all, and it's very humbling to see that so many of y'all choose us to be your primary source of news. If y'all did enjoy greatly, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because we're here every single day of the week, except for Mondays. So if you're here and you're like, oh, why is the stream not running on Mondays? That is channel tradition. We never run on a Monday, but every other day of the week, you can always expect us to be here at the exact same time, doing the exact same thing. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, good night, folks. Like the Enforcer said, a huge shout out for another great stream tonight, and we appreciate it. And also, Slav Ukraine, Herom Slava, and we'll see you all tomorrow night, and also maybe midday as well for the short war summary if there's enough news to cover. But with that, thank you all for watching, and get some rest, and good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Spring on me,